Week 15 is upon us, and we have a lot of great games to get to this weekend. Plus, we're also going to be joined by Chris Lowe off the top of the show and Derek Pegues, Mississippi State star linebacker and safety a little bit later on. Plus, we're going to pick games today. So sit back, relax, and enjoy as Heath and myself get you ready for Week 15 action here in college football, only on the Stingray Show.
The Dogs and Stingray are coming for you!
This is Stephen Ray, a.k.a. Stingray, coming to you live from Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
Good afternoon, Mr. Feinbaum. Stingray here, and I'm about to shoot the bull with you like all the Auburn students do down at Auburn. Worst defense ever!
So without further ado, here is the biggest Alabama going for the field goal. The kick is up. It is away. It is no good. Chris Davis bringing it out of the end zone. Oh, he's got blockers. Chris Davis up the sideline. Here he goes.
Here we go, guys. Dobbs back to pass. Launching the ball. Jennings, he's got it. Jennings, he's got it. Touchdown, Tennessee. They shocked the Dogs in Sanford Stadium. Are you kidding me? My God almighty. What an epic way for the Tennessee-Georgia rivalry to end this game. What a play. Wow.
Welcome inside another exciting edition of the Stingray Show, everybody. I am your host, Stephen Ray, and we are actually on episode number 22 today, so we're moving right on along. So without further ado, let me go on ahead and first bring in my co-host, Heath Hopkins, and then we will go into our first interview with Chris Lowe. Heath, how's it going today, my friend?
It is a wonderful day here outside of Memphis, Tennessee, brother. How about you? How are things at Tuscaloosa?
Doing good, my friend, and a lot of college football to get to, a lot of interesting news and notes to get to. So without further ado, let's not keep our good friend Chris Lowe waiting.
No, sir. Let's bring in Chris.
Chris, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm great. It's good to be with you guys.
Thank you. And first off, let me just go on ahead and ask, with the big news that happened, I think it was Tuesday, the announcement that the Michigan-Ohio State game was canceled. What are your thoughts about that, and how do you think that that will ultimately impact Ohio State as it relates to getting into the 14 playoff?
It sounded like that had sort of been brewing, and Michigan wouldn't be able to play that football game with all their COVID issues. So I wasn't completely surprised that the game was canceled. And I know there's been a lot of debate about whether Ohio State got a little bit of a mulligan or, some preferential treatment. Because remember, the Big Ten, this was a Big Ten rule that you had to play 6 games. It wasn't an NCAA rule or a college football playoff rule. The Big Ten is the one that mandated that rule, that to be eligible for the Big Ten championship, you had to play 6 games. So I guess it's the way you look at it. It's been it's been a really crazy, challenging season. I don't think anybody that's realistic anyway ever expected this to be a cookie cutter season for teams and conferences and different regions of the country with all the different COVID challenges everybody faced. So really, anything that happened this year, if you'd have told me back in September or August that any of this stuff would have happened. Like Notre Dame and Clemson aren't playing this week, so then neither one has to play a game before the ACC championship game. I guess I would have been surprised at anything. If I am surprised by anything, it's that we played as much football as we played this year. Yeah. Certainly in the SEC and the ACC, those conferences have played a ton of games, and I think kudos to the players for all the sacrifices they've made. And all the behind-the-scenes people, equipment managers and trainers and sports information directors and all those people that coaches are paid in a lot of cases millions of dollars, but all the people that aren't paid a lot of money, starting with the players, what they've done and what they've sacrificed and what they've endured to play this much football. So I think right now, even though they've only played 5 games, you can make a strong case that Ohio State is one of the best 4 teams in the country. They still got to go win the Big Ten championship game.
Yes.
But I think for any of us to, no matter what side of the fence you sit on, to say, well, it's not right or it is right, I don't think anybody really expected. I know I didn't expect this to be a normal season with a normal set of circumstances leading up to the playoff.
Yeah. Chris, you talking about the playoff and these other conferences that didn't get in as many games, mainly the Pac and the Big Ten. What are going to be the long-term effects that are going to hurt those 2 conferences going into 2021?
I don't know. I don't know that it's going to – if we have a normal season next year and we get a vaccine and we can play starting in late August or September, I don't know that this year – well, I hope it does. I hope it doesn't lead into next year. I mean, this is such a weird year. Just it was almost survival this year, just to get through the season.
Yeah.
And the Big Ten started late. Pac-12 started late. I mean, they weren't going to play, then they were going to play. And everybody has their different reasons. Again, the Big Ten. I'll say this for Ohio State. Ohio State was the one that was driving the train in the Big Ten to play. They wanted to play all along, and I don't think had it not been for Ohio State's leadership and the powers that be there at the Ohio State University, I'm not sure the Big Ten ever would have played. They're the ones that sort of drove that train, and yeah, they had a good football team. They knew they had a good football team, but I would think the Big Ten is going to be fine. The Pac-12 really hasn't been much of a participant anyway in the college playoff, even before this year. And, we'll see where they are. But it's been the playoff has been dominated really by the SEC, the ACC, the Big 12, because Oklahoma, this will be the first year I guess Oklahoma hasn't been in a long time.
Right.
And Ohio State, really, for the most part. There's a stat, guys, and I don't have it in front of me. If you go back to the playoff, the very first playoff, I think leading into this year, there were, 24 spots in the playoff. I think 17 of those spots have been filled by either Clemson, Alabama, Ohio State, and Oklahoma. 17 of the 24 spots in the playoff until this year had been filled by 4 schools.
Wow. Chris, you mentioned Oklahoma. Some news out of Norman that mainly went to Columbia, South Carolina. Shane Beamer becoming the head coach there. What are some names that kind of fell second place and third place and on down the line there at South Carolina, some guys that missed out on the job?
Well, the Gamecocks talked to several different people. They talked to Billy Napier in Louisiana. They talked to Scott Satterfield at Louisville. They talked to Jamie Chadwell, who's done a terrific job at Coastal Carolina. I think Coastal Carolina, to me, is the story of the year in college football. And certainly that game last week was the game of the year. BYU. I mean, those 2 teams put that together in 2 days. Yeah. 2.5 days.
Did you get a shirt, the Mormons versus Mullet shirt?
I mean, no, but that's I would like to have that as a souvenir.
I would too.
What a game. The game ends on the 1-yard line.
Yeah.
And those 2 teams have, 2 days to prepare for each other?
Right.
BYU flies all the way across the country to play. 2 fun quarterbacks to watch play, Grayson McCall at Coastal and Zach Wilson, who I bet you Zach Wilson plays a long time in the NFL. He's that type of talent.
Yeah.
Reminds me a little bit of Taysom Hill, who's done pretty well for himself in New Orleans. Yep. But Chadwell, interviewed, Satterfield interviewed. I don't know how much Satterfield really was interested in that job. I'm not sure he didn't use that more as leverage, which I think has probably backfired on him at Louisville. And then Billy Napier, has been awfully patient. He's in a lot of schools: Mississippi State, Arkansas, Ole Miss. Now South Carolina, who've come calling, and he's been. He said, "You know what? I like it here at Louisiana for right now. I'll wait and see if anything better comes down the pike." And then Beamer was in it all the way. I always felt like Beamer probably, at the end of the day, was the leader in the clubhouse.
Yeah.
Because of just his ties there, and he had so much support among former players, among key donors. there in South Carolina. He was there during the greatest run in the history of the school and had a big hand in it with the way he sort of orchestrated their recruiting during that time. And it's a little bit of a different hire because he hasn't been a head coach. He hasn't been a primary play caller on offense or defense, but he has coached on offense and defense, and he's been a special teams coordinator. And I think having knowledge in all three phases of the game will help him be a head coach. It'll be a curve. Let's be honest. He's 43. He's never been a head coach. How quickly does he overcome that curve? We'll find out. But I've known Shane a long time, almost 20 years. And he's learned from some of the best, starting right there with his dad, Frank.
Yeah.
Well,
I'll go on, Stephen.
Okay, let's go to the Big 12 for a second. What do you think the issue is down there in Austin at the University of Texas? Why can't they find the right guy for the job? And do you feel like that we are on a ticking clock for Tom Herman to be let go at Texas?
You know, the latest I hear is that they're probably going to hang in there with him. You know, but Texas is like a lot of the quote unquote blue bloods. You know, it only takes one or two people to decide differently, and things can happen pretty fast. Texas is a classic example, going all the way back to, you know, Mac Brown's best years of a blue blood that just hits that snag and just an abyss or whatever you want to call it, just can't dig its way out of it. You know, they've gone through several coaches. They've got all the resources in the world. They've got a great state to recruit from. But Texas has a lot of cooks in the kitchen, a lot of wealthy cooks.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's the old saying, there's big money. You know, there's really big money, and then there's Texas money.
Right.
There's a lot of folks there in Texas with a lot of money who want to have a say in that football program. And sometimes that backfires and works against you. And I think that's happened there at Texas.
Mm-hmm. You know, talking about these coaching changes and things, they're in the volunteer state. I know you know a little bit about that. What in the world is going on at Vanderbilt before we start talking about what's going on at Tennessee? Let's start with Vanderbilt. What's the latest you've heard on their coaching situation?
Well, first of all, it's a hard job. And you know, what James Franklin did there, I don't know that it will ever be duplicated again in our lifetime. But, you know, James did show that you can win there and have some success. And I think he came in at a time when Bobby Johnson, I always thought, was very underrated and left him some pretty good football players. And Bobby's probably not appreciated as much as he should be. But then James took those guys and took it to another level. Derek Mason just wasn't able to get it done. Derek's a great guy. He's a great you know, he's one of those guys on defense. He won't be on the sidelines very long. Somebody will hire him as a defensive coordinator, but just wasn't able to make it work as a head coach there. I think they're going to look for somebody that has experience coaching at an academic-esque type university, maybe a service academy. A guy like Troy Calhoun would make sense there. Jeff Monken are two guys that I think you would probably see. Lee at Notre Dame, you know, who was there, the DC at Notre Dame, who went to school, played there at Notre Dame, would make a lot of sense. I think those type of guys who Candace, their AD, understands that if you're going to have success there, you probably need to sort of understand the way things work at Vanderbilt, have a pretty good a pretty good feel for what works there and what doesn't, and whoever it is, I mean, Vanderbilt's going to have to decide that they want to be good at football, invest in the kinds of facilities and player amenities that you need. I mean, you look around the country at institutions like Vandy, Stanford, Northwestern. Northwestern's practice facility, guys, I don't know if you've ever seen it. I have. Is as nice and as majestic as any in college football, right there on the banks of Lake Michigan. I mean, it is a Taj Mahal. And so if Northwestern's going to do it, you know, Duke spent a lot of money the last few years on its football facility and its stadium. Stanford's done a nice job. Well, there's no reason that Vandy and the SEC can't do it, and I think you're going to have to give whoever the head coach is there more than a paper sword if he's going to go to a knife fight.
Right.
We'll talk about Tennessee. There's a lot of rumors and hot seats and everything going on with that. who's on the bigger hot seat right now? Is it Pruitt or is it the Gus bus down at Auburn? I would guess Tennessee is right now.
Well, I think both those guys will make it. I mean, because again, it's a COVID year. This is Jeremy's third year. I mean, they've been laying away for Gus forever.
Right.
He's beaten Saban more than anybody. And they didn't beat him this year, but he's always been able to win that game or enough games to save his job. He's probably, there's no probably to it. Gus is underrated. What he's done, and that's a hard job. And much like Texas, there's a ton of cooks in the kitchen there at Auburn. I guess you could say that about a lot of SEC jobs. I think he'll probably make it. I'd be surprised. First of all, they'd owe him about $11 million within 3 months.
Wow.
And then they'd have to pay him another $11 million. I think $22 million is the total price tag within a number of years. But within 90 days, Auburn would have to come up with $11 million. Not even our friend Mark Schleybaugh has that kind of cash. So I think he probably makes it. Jeremy, in his third year, I don't know that it's fair in a COVID year to assess a head football coach in his third year. Now, that said, guys, I think all bets are off if he were to lose to Vanderbilt this weekend. They might fire him coming off the field if he loses to Vanderbilt. And you know what? Given how depleted Vanderbilt is, interim head coach, they're down, way down. If Vanderbilt beats Tennessee, he probably should be fired.
Yeah.
Wow. What about Auburn? I know you touched on it very briefly there, but, heaven forbid if he loses against Mississippi State this weekend and Auburn loses on the road to Starkville, do we see the same thing happen? Are they going to fire him before he can step on the plane to get out of there?
They'd probably open the door, for the group there on the planes that have sort of wanted to get Gus for a while. And I think their argument is he just doesn't fit at Auburn. And yet, it fits. Being the right fit is big in college football.
Right.
But, it's not like Gus's tenure there's been a disaster.
Right.
Have they been a little inconsistent? Yeah. But they won a lot of big games too, and they have, again, I keep saying this, over the last 7, 8, 9, 10 years, who's beaten Nick Saban more than Gus Malzahn? Nobody. And so that's a hard job. And Auburn's a tough job. I'm not saying it's not a job that you can win, because certainly Gus and before him Gene Chizik proved that you can win there.
Yeah.
How many teams in the last 10 years outside Bama and Clemson, and maybe I'm forgetting somebody, maybe you throw Oklahoma in there. How many teams in the last 10 years have either won a national championship, played for a national championship, won an SEC title, or played for an SEC title as much as Auburn has?
Right.
Nobody.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So, if he loses to Mississippi State, the door opens. But I think if they take care of business there against State on Saturday, I'd be surprised if Gus is not back next year.
Well, my final question for you, Chris, is how good is this Texas A&M team, and do you feel like that they will make it into the 4-team playoff, or is that loss to Alabama really going to hurt them?
Well, they need some help. I think they can get in. I think the way they get in, the best scenario for A&M would be for Notre Dame to beat Clemson again in the ACC championship game, and then Alabama to beat Florida in the SEC championship game. So in that scenario, you would have Alabama in as the SEC champ, Notre Dame certainly in as the ACC champ, and then you'd have 2 spots open. Probably Ohio State, assuming they beat Northwestern in the Big Ten championship, and then I think A&M would have a great chance as number 4 in that scenario.
Right.
Cincinnati might be a little bit of a consideration if they stay unbeaten. But would a group of 5 team unbeaten get in over a one-loss A&M team whose only loss at that point would be the number 1 seed in the playoff, Alabama? I don't think so. I think A&M in that scenario would get in. The other scenario that would get, I think, a lot of or multiple SEC teams would be if Florida were to beat Alabama in the SEC championship game, and certainly if it was a close game, then I think Florida and Alabama at that point are both in.
Right.
Right.
And Clemson, Notre Dame would probably take care of itself. If Clemson wins, they're going to get in.
Right.
But I think Notre Dame would get in too. The way Clemson's out is if they lose to Notre Dame.
Yes.
They're out. And but I tell you, I think Bama's in regardless, unless they were to lose somehow to Arkansas this week. But if they lose and it's a competitive game in the SEC championship game, Bama's going to get in. And they should. They're one of the best 4 teams in the country.
Right.
You mentioned Florida. When did you know that Dan Mullen was a really good coach here in the SEC?
Well, I mean, he was even before he was a head coach. You know, he was a big part of that Florida run when Urban Meyer was there as his OC. But what he did at Mississippi State, you know, and to be competitive and to win some of the games they did against the Blue Bloods in the SEC, you know, to bring – everybody talks about Dak Prescott, what a talent he is. Well, you know, it wasn't like he was the most highly recruited quarterback coming out of high school. And, you know, Dan gets him there in Starkville and does what Dan has done with a lot of quarterbacks. He's developed him and coached him. You know, Dan's a really good evaluator of quarterbacks. And they played at a real high level the whole time he was in. I'm talking about the Bulldogs did the whole time Dan was in Starkville. So it was, you know, somebody was going to scoop him up, but I don't think he was ever going to leave Starkville just to go be another head coach. But a place like Florida calls, where he'd been there before,
right?
It was pretty much a no-brainer that he was going to go to Florida. And I think what he's done there, you know, the knock on Dan was always he wasn't a great recruiter, and that he didn't.
Right.
I don't want to say work hard enough, but he just didn't set up the kind of recruiting operation he needed to recruit great players. Well, you look at Florida, where they are right now, the kinds of players that they've been able to put on the field. I mean, to me, what's important is what's a player when he leaves your campus. Right. You know, whether he was a 4-star, 2-star, or 5-star, what kind of players are they once they leave your campus? And Dan, more than often, whether it's at State or at Florida, when guys leave campus, they've been pretty darn good football players.
Do you have anything else, Heath?
Yeah, I was going to ask him about the SEC championship. How do you see things shaking out on Saturday?
Well, I mean, until somebody proves they can score 50 points against Alabama,
yeah,
I don't see Alabama losing. I mean, they just are so explosive. Such a different team than we've seen under Saban. I mean, they've been explosive the last few years, but gosh, less than 10 years ago, Bama was beating teams 9-6, 17-13, 21 to 10, what have you. They were just beating teams up on defense and running the football, controlling the clock, throw the ball over your head to Julio Jones. But now they're just spreading you out. They're throwing it all the way, throwing it down the field to 3, 4, 5 different receivers. And yet, I think the thing that separates them now, because offenses have changed so much, is they can still line up and bloody your nose with Najee Harris. Yeah. They still have an NFL offensive line. And if they get into a grinded-out game, it's not like they're going to be going, oh, what is this? I think they'll be plenty comfortable. But they're equally comfortable in winning 48-41, which they weren't 6, 7, 8 years ago. And they're going to have to turn the football over and play poorly, I think, to lose really to anybody. But that can happen. We see that happen, and I'm not saying they're unbeatable because they're not, but they're going to have to help somebody, I think, to beat them. And, Mac Jones has had a terrific year, and it's just so smart the way he spreads the football around. Steve Sarkisian has been, if he doesn't win the Broyles Award this year as the top assistant coach in college football, they ought to just discontinue it because he's been magical in the way he's continually set up mismatches on offense and gotten the right guys the ball. And I tell you what, Devontae Smith, and I know that Mac Jones fans and Kyle Trask fans may disagree. Devontae Smith, to me, is the best player in college football. I haven't seen a better player this year than Devontae Smith.
That's fair enough to say.
But I think Bama wins. I think Florida's going to score some points because they've been really good on offense, and Trask has been incredible. But I could see this being a 45-28 type game, 45-31 type game, because I think Florida – I've got that much respect for Florida's offense.
Mm-hmm. Chris, we don't ever talk too much about negative things here on the show, but it's in the news and we can't really ignore it. there's a lot of off-the-field drama going on down in Baton Rouge with LSU. What have you heard the latest on that, and what do you know about the situation?
Well, the latest we know is that LSU self-imposed a bowl ban, which if you're ever going to self-impose a bowl ban, this would be the year to do it. So they've stuck it up on the field.
Right.
Yeah, I think that when you look at sort of what's going on at LSU, there's been all sorts of reports out there, and you're right, some ugly accusations. It's something they're going to have to get their hands around. And when you have a bad year, and certainly when you come off a magical year like they did, but you have a bad year, things sometimes spiral out of control, and things sometimes are magnified. But it's we'll sort of see where all this leads to. But I know it's been a hard year for the folks in the Bayou on and off the football field.
I know coaching carousel has kind of dominated our conversation today, but next year we might see an opening at LSU. We might see one at Auburn. We might see one at Tennessee just to start off. Is this going – and heaven forbid if Lane Kiffin has a great year at Ole Miss, he might take another job somewhere else. Is it safe to say that 2021 might be the Hugh Freeze sweepstakes?
I know Hugh would like to get back in the SEC. He'd like to get back at the highest level. I mean, he's happy at Liberty, but I know he would like to coach again at the highest level. I would say he'd get that shot somewhere. I don't know. I'd be surprised if LSU opens next year. I mean, I think for that to open, there's going to have to be an even bigger scandal develop off the field. That thing's going to really have to mushroom into something. They're not going to fire Ogeron after one bad year. Not after perhaps the greatest year in the history of the SEC. And winning the SEC or the national championship the year before. Listen, at Auburn, at some point, if they get a chance, they're probably going to get Gus. And if Pruitt has another so-so year or worse next year, the Tennessee job could certainly open. Does Dan Mullen get a shot to go to the NFL? I mean, I think that's a realistic possibility because he's a smart guy. Realistic. He's an offensive, a guy that's developed quarterbacks. I mean, there may be some NFL owner who takes a shot at Dan Mullen. So, yeah, I think next year, to answer your question, sort of in a capsuled version, you're going to see more openings, period, because it's not a COVID year, and I think you could see more movement next year, period.
All right. Well, Chris, I got to ask you this before we head out. Is that a Bernard King and a Larry Bird jersey behind you, brother? It
is. I'm sort of showing my age. Two players who dominated the NBA back in the 80s. And had some sort of epic showdowns on the court against each other. But that's those are throwback Celtics jersey and a Bernard King jersey when he played at Tennessee a long time ago, 40-plus years ago. So
wow.
But two of the best. I mean, you go back, two Hall of Famers, two guys that scored a few points in their career.
Yeah. Oh, more than a few.
Yes. Well, Chris, we want to thank you for taking time out of your busy Friday to join us, and hopefully we can do it again soon. And if we don't talk to you before then, we hope you have a very Merry Christmas. And before we let you go, is there anything that you would like to plug or tell people how they can find you and your stories online?
No, you just catch me on ESPN.com, and I'm sure that there'll be a few things as we get ready for the playoff and bowl season. And let's just hope in closing that Mark Schlabach's dog doesn't run out on the field at Sanford Stadium anytime soon this year.
Yes. All right, man. Well, thank you so much, and hopefully we can do it again soon.
You guys have a good day.
Thank you, Chris.
All right, man. Well, I'm sorry I've got you small down there. I apologize.
I've got to look up to you, right?
Yeah. All right. We're good now. All right, man. Well, that was a great interview. We want to thank Chris Lowe once again. And, man, I tell you what, we actually have another big guest about to come on with us. If you are ready to bring in, let's go ahead and bring in Mr. Brandon Marcello. We want to welcome him back to the Stingray Show. Brandon, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm good, Stingray. What's up? Hey, Heath, how are you?
Man, I hope you're doing okay with all of this crazy pandemic. Is everything going well for you?
It's going well. We've been dodging it so far in the house, and but man, as this thing's spreading, more and more people who are getting it, and it's kind of scary out there. So
Yes.
I know everybody keeps hearing it and they hate to hear it, but just please wear a mask. I wear a mask everywhere I go when I step outside this house, and
Yes.
please do so.
Yes.
Brandon, I kind of got to give you props, man. You look like you're in a comic book movie. You got the nice brick background and the beard going, and I'm wondering if Dr. Eagle's going to come join us here in a second.
Well, yeah, I can't grow hair on the top of my head, so I might as well grow it here on my face. And I got the TV studio light out and everything for some of the stuff I do for 24/7 sports, and I got it all set up. So I literally just walk into my office and flick a switch and turn the camera on, and I'm ready to go.
Yeah,
man, that's
impressive.
awesome. Well, first off, let me just go ahead and ask, what were your thoughts about the Ohio State-Michigan game being canceled this week?
Wasn't too unexpected, and we've been hearing rumblings since last week that the Big Ten was thinking about a way to lower that threshold from 6 games to 5 games so that Ohio State can get in the Big Ten championship, and that was because we kind of had a feeling that Michigan's was going to have to cancel because of the COVID issues they've been dealing with. So it wasn't too surprising. Neither was the vote and the decision to make Ohio State eligible. I mean, listen, Ohio State is obviously the Big Ten's best chance of getting into the playoff. And, say what you will, I'm okay with it because we're in weird times and we can change the rules as we go.
Yes.
Because we don't know what's going to be happening, day to day. And I think Ohio State has obviously shown enough by beating Indiana in its own division, which was the only other team that was capable of winning the championship, even 3 weeks ago or whatever, but they can't now. So it was going to be Ohio State's division to win, to win anyway. They're going to win it anyway. So just put them in, even though they haven't played 6 games. Just do it.
We were talking to Chris earlier about the financial impact of so much poor leadership from the Big Ten to start things off and saying they're not going to play, and they kind of doubled down on that, and then they finally caved in. And as Chris said, Ohio State was driving that bus for them to cave in to play. What is the financial impact the Big Ten is going to see heading into 2021 of just the poor leadership that they got from their commissioner?
It's a great question, and for some of these schools, it'll be substantial, more so than other teams. The question though that I have is really what it's going to be as far as like a payout, per school. Are certain schools going to get more money for playing more games from their TV contracts? Usually, in conferences like the SEC and the Big Ten, they try to keep things pretty even as far as payouts among their schools, especially the SEC. But I think you could see that changing here this year, after this year, where, teams in the SEC and the Big Ten, if they didn't play a certain number of games, hey, we're not going to give you the full payout this year, and sorry, but that's just how it is. We don't have a lot of money, or they have a lot of money still to go around, but not as much money as they wanted to. And if you didn't play 3 games on TV that you were supposed to, you're going to get less money.
Wow.
Well, let me just go ahead and ask you this too, because you recently covered Auburn. That was your previous gig. How much pressure do you think is on Gus Malzahn right now to win tomorrow in prime time in Starkville?
I think he could lose that game and still keep his job, but next year is it for him. He better contend for an SEC West championship and beat Georgia or Alabama or both, or he's probably gone. I think he knows that because he's pretty much had to go through that every 2 years since 2015. So, listen, he's a guy that I think has done things at Auburn that I'm not sure a lot of other coaches could have done. The problem is, and I've said this really since after the 2014 season, that 2013 debut was a blessing and a curse, but more a curse because it set the expectations through the roof. Auburn fans were like, "Hey, this is great. We couldn't believe that this is happening," but you set that standard. Now it's like, okay, we've been to the national championship game 2 times in the last 4 years, in 2010 and 2013. How do you kind of meet those expectations again, even though people were grateful that they had, I mean, listen, they had the longest SEC losing streak going into that season, and yet they win the SEC title. And now, I mean, he's lost 4 games or more each season since then. And so it's just been kind of high point and then just flat line, really.
Yeah.
But there's been little peaks there because they beat Alabama or they beat Georgia and they got to the SEC championship game in 2017, but then got just demolished because they were worn out and their top running back, Kerryon Johnson, was injured. But, to me, losing to Mississippi State would turn up the heat for him going into next year. I think the offseason would be nothing but just absolute fire for him if he were to lose to Mississippi State. Yes. And then if they play in a bowl game, if they lose their bowl game. And that's the other thing. He does not have a good record in bowl games. He's won one bowl game, I think. I'm trying to think. Birmingham Bowl against Memphis.
Against Memphis,
Yeah, and that's the only one I can remember covering them. And to be quite honest, I was half paying attention to that game when I was covering it. Because LSU was having a standoff with Auburn, really, behind the scenes because Kevin Steele was about to be named Auburn's defensive coordinator that day. And Les Miles was hiding out on a bus at the time trying to not answer any questions about Kevin Steele as they were heading to their bowl practice or whatever. I can't remember. But anyway, I was trying to break that news. Didn't break it, but I got a anyway, it was a weird day. It was a weird day. But it was one of those games where it was just like Auburn won it. They beat Memphis. Okay. And it wasn't even a great Memphis team. But anyway, back to the bowl situation. I mean, he hasn't had postseason success. The one thing you could say about him is that for the most part, he kind of keeps up the image of a clean program, and he recruits well. He's always in the top 10 or top 15. I think there's only been 1 year where they haven't been top 10. But you got to be a top 10 program. The problem is, even if you have a top 10 recruiting class in the SEC, you might still finish in the middle of the pack, and that's where coaching comes in, and that's where the criticism for him really comes from. Is everybody criticizes his play calling, his decision making, the way he handles things on the field on game days, and it's certainly hot and cold because he's the only coach in the SEC who's beating Nick Saban more than once, and he's beat him 3 times now. But at some point you gotta, I guess, get over that next step. Otherwise, you can't stay somewhere more than 10 years, especially in the SEC. It's unheard of.
Right.
Yeah. Brendan, I don't know if you remember John Saunders and Terry Bowden that was on the ABC show for years, and it was college football at the half. And I remember Tommy was having great success his first year at Clemson, and John Saunders just made a rhetorical question to him, and he said, "Hey, is there any advice you'd like to give to your brother?" He goes, "Yeah, don't go 11-0 in your first year. They'll fire you." And I thought that was the funniest line. It was the greatest line. But Gus has kind of fallen into that.
You're exactly right.
As you mentioned.
It's like he's followed that path, but he's been at a cleaner program than him, obviously, with the way things ended at Auburn for Bowden. But anyway, I think that you're exactly right. I mean, Auburn's just a weird job because it's a program that really shouldn't have the amount of success that it has at times, but it's a roller coaster, right? I mean, It seems like 1 year they're just absolutely kind of average to below average like they are this year to, oh my gosh, they're contending for an SEC title and they're beating Alabama and they're challenging Georgia and beating Georgia. It's a weird that's why I love covering Auburn, because it was always just a weird dynamic.
Yeah.
Every year, you didn't quite know what to expect, and it was a program that has a lot of tradition, but really geographically and the money at the schools around them, they shouldn't have the type of success they have some years, and yet they managed to do it. That's why I love covering them. It's always a great story one way or the other, and I think that it's a tough job. If Gus Malzahn manages to survive beyond next year, he's the type of coach where I think they should, considering what he's done there, just be like, okay, we're not going to put a statue of you up or whatever, but we need to consider you one of our greatest coaches in history, in Auburn history, because at least he was consistent, and he beat Alabama. Goodness gracious. We're in the greatest era of Alabama football ever, and the greatest run by any college football team ever, coached by the greatest coach ever.
Yes.
And it's all happening here now. And Gus Malzahn's had to face that every day of his life since he's been the Auburn head coach, and yet he's managed to win 3 games against the guy. That's crazy.
That is crazy. Keeping it in the SEC and the other Tigers and NCAA violations, let's go down to the Bayou and talk about LSU. What's the latest that you've heard about that, and is there anything that caught you off guard?
Well, hey, listen, I was listening to Chris Lowe there at the beginning, and by the way, Chris is a great reporter and a great guy too. He helped me get my first job covering an SEC team. He's a fantastic guy. I'm glad you guys had him on. But I heard him talking about, it's the best year to put in a postseason ban for yourself. Yeah. And that's kind of in vogue right now. You're speaking about Auburn. I know their basketball program did the same this year. Like, we're going to sit out this year. And it's like, okay, how courageous. And LSU just having the year it's having. I don't even know if they'd want to play in a bowl game. They don't have the numbers to even play in a bowl game right now. But, listen, when you win a national title at a program where it's not Alabama,
right?
And you're in the SEC, man, the spotlight intensifies, and things that come to light end up making people dig more and more, and then you get in trouble. Listen, Auburn had that happen after 2010 and during 2010.
Right.
They had that going into the 2013 season after Gene Chizik was fired. I don't know if anybody remembers that. They had all these national reports coming out against them about the program and just how dirty it was with players and stuff, maybe getting money and everything, and then the players denied it. Yeah, and drugs. It was just a weird time. So if you're not Alabama and you start winning like that, people start coming and digging after you. And not to say that, like, hey, whatever LSU did or whatever this team did is fine. But I guess what I'm saying is a lot of this stuff, whatever's going on, happens everywhere. We just don't know about it because it's not being looked at by the NCAA or dug up, or, the NCAA's in your backyard planting a flower bed, and then they notice, hey, there's a sewage pipe exploding over here. I better go look at that. What's going on over there? Oh, your football program is in a mess. So that's just how college football is. I mean, I've gotten so numb. I mean, I'm kind of cynical by nature, which isn't a good thing. But I've gotten so numb to, this school's cheating or that school.
Yeah.
Man, everybody's doing it to some level, and I just don't care anymore when I hear about it, to be honest.
We asked Chris this as well. I don't know if you heard about it. Dan Mullen. When did you know that he was a really good coach and was going to be successful in the SEC as a head?
Well, yeah, that's a great question, and I this sounds like hindsight, but I'm telling you, I started covering Mississippi State 2010, and that summer, when I was about to take the job, and I was on the radio in Arkansas, in my home state, at the time, my previous job, saying, watch out for Mississippi State this year. They're going to win like 8 games, maybe 7 games. And everybody's like, what? I was like, Dan Mullen does an incredible job coaching up that offense. And the year before that, coming off that Egg Bowl win, things were shifting.
Right.
And sure enough, in 2010, I started covering that team. It was clear to me in the first 2 weeks of that season, I was like, wow, this he has a chance here. Because listen, he took Chris Relf, a tight end, a guy who should have been playing tight end, from Montgomery, Alabama, and turned him into, at that time, before Dak Prescott and everything, at that time, one of the great quarterbacks really in a single season in Mississippi State history, if you really look at what he did in running the football and leading that team. It was incredible. And I've said this after that season too. If Mississippi State had Cam Newton that year, what did they do? Because Mississippi State that year, I thought, just from my eyes, had the better defense than Auburn. And they had the better backfield depth with Ladarius Perkins being kind of a change of pace guy that really sped up that offense when they had to kind of get and go. And Chad Bumpus at receiver. They had a good tight end too. I can't remember his name. And their offensive line was really good. Their offensive line was maybe a push against Auburn. So I say that to say this. If Cam Newton was the quarterback instead of Chris Relf, a guy who should have been playing tight end, and I loved him, I loved covering him. But if Cam Newton was there, what would they have done in 2010 in Mississippi State? I think you would have seen something similar to what happened with Dak, 4 years later there. You would have been like, whoa, where did this team come from? And all of a sudden they're in the top 5, maybe number 1 in the country. And that's because of Dan Mullen, man. He's the best quarterbacks coach and offensive coordinator as a head coach out there. And, I heard Chris talking about maybe he goes to the NFL someday. Maybe, yeah. And listen, someone asked me this question, and I was getting hounded about it before the season. It was, does Kirby Smart win a national championship before Dan Mullen ever beats him? And I said, Dan Mullen's going to win a national championship before Kirby Smart, and he's going to beat Georgia. And they're like, what? How dare you? How dare you say that? And I'm like, listen, man, Dan Mullen is a better offensive coach, and look what he's doing right now. His defense isn't great right now, but I still give him a shot at potentially doing it this year because, as we've seen over the last several years, if you have an elite quarterback and elite receivers, you can beat anybody despite your defense.
Yeah.
LSU did it last year. Obviously, that offense was crazy good, but Alabama and Florida this year are just like maybe right below where LSU was this time last year. So I give them a shot, and I can't wait for the SEC championship game. I mean, it's been like a month and a half. We're just sitting here going, let's see these two teams go at it, because I think it's going to be kind of a shootout. I think it could be a game that's like 40-something to 30-something potentially, because elite quarterbacks beat elite defenses in college football now, and both have elite quarterbacks.
I was listening to Steve Robertson in his podcast earlier this week, and he was talking about Dan Mullen going to the NFL, and someone mentioned that someone brought up the question to him, do you think Dan goes to the Cowboys and reunites with Dak? And Steve said something that made me laugh out loud when I was listening to the podcast. He said, Dan's not going to go to an organization with a bad owner. He's not going to the Cowboys and Jerry Jones, even if that opportunity came up. And it made me laugh a little bit. But if Dan takes that leap to the NFL, do you think he takes any job, or does he hold out? Because he's got a great gig at Florida.
Yeah, that's a great question. I kind of compare it. Listen, when did the Florida job come open before Will Muschamp was hired? Was it 2010, 2011?
Oh, man. I got 4 kids. Don't ask me that question.
Well, I say that to say this because Dan's name came up for the Florida job back then.
Right.
Yeah.
And at the time, I was reporting on it, and how do I put this lightly? Florida and Dan weren't seeing eye to eye at that time. They were And Dan didn't really want to work for Florida. And so people behind the scenes that worked with Dan was kind of poo-pooing the idea that he would even be interested in the job. But it was because of his previous ties to Florida and what he dealt with there when he was the offensive coordinator and when Jeremy Foley was the athletics director. So that's kind of why this all worked out at Florida in the first place, the second time around, with Scott Strickland, his former boss at Mississippi State there. So, yeah, I can see that. When you talk about that, working for a bad owner, I mean, listen, when jobs like Florida and Miami were interested in Dan Mullen early in his career at Mississippi State, and he was like, nah, I'm not interested in that. Oh, yeah, I could certainly see him going, no, I'm not interested in going to work for Jerry Jones and getting micromanaged, because Dan Mullen is, he wants, it's his fiefdom, man.
Yeah.
Right.
He's not going to want Jerry Jones up in his business every day.
Yes.
And I also don't think, I think there's a part of him that probably would be like, I don't want to be Dak's coach for 10, 15 years in college and NFL and have all these expectations of this to be forever tied together for both of our careers. That'd be a difficult thing to do.
Because Belichick and Tom Brady, that never worked, right?
Well, it'd be like if Bill Belichick was also his offensive coordinator or head coach at Michigan, and then he made the jump to the NFL like 5 years into his NFL career, and listen, Belichick's Belichick, but I mean, that's a big risk to take.
Yeah,
like, I'm going to go coach my guy again at a NFL team that's, as you said, it's just the ownership's always up in your business. You're kind of set up to fail if you become a Cowboys coach. You always are.
You really are. Yeah, I agree with that.
We always ask our guests this. Heath usually asks it, but I'm going to ask it today. What is the craziest recruiting story that you have heard that you can actually tell family friendly on that?
And before you go any further, you can leave out names and schools, or you can add them in there.
Well, all right. Gosh. And I don't even cover recruiting very much, but I've seen.
I'll say it.
Things.
Go for it.
Well, there's things like not even involved with football I've heard, but and one of which is kind of sickening and disturbing, and I can't say it on here.
Okay.
Well, now I want to know.
Yeah.
Okay, so
go for it. Just go for it.
No, I'm not doing it. It.
Okay.
No. And it's not necessarily like breaking rules. It's just weird. Okay, so obviously the Cam Newton thing.
Right.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many weird things I was hearing throughout the 2010 season. I'm a fresh reporter at Mississippi State. Never covered an SEC program full time in my life, and the biggest story in college football is going on, and Mississippi State's tied up into it. I was struggling to get air every day, and then the things you heard, and then the kind of the back and forth behind the scenes among schools and representatives and people. It was vicious. Now, the weirdest. Now, this isn't weird, but it was just this kind of encompasses what recruiting is.
Right.
All right. So I don't even remember the year, but Mississippi State and Ole Miss, Hugh Freeze and Dan Mullen were in a huge recruiting battle for defensive lineman. I think defensive lineman Chris Jones.
Right.
All right.
Houston, Mississippi. Yeah.
And I was working the Clarion Ledger at the time, and so when signing day or things were heating up, we focused on recruiting a lot. Especially the big names. And Chris Jones was that guy because he was a Mississippi State commitment, I think, but he was still visiting Ole Miss and talking to them, and people just kind of thought, oh, he's going to flip. And I remember one weekend, it was the craziest 24 hours, and it just shows you how hypocritical everybody is.
Right.
He was supposed to visit Mississippi State I think unofficially or something like that, on a Saturday to go watch a Mississippi State basketball game. And that Friday night, I get word that he's in Oxford visiting with Ole Miss. So I had talked to him previously, and I texted him and everything, and I say, hey, I hear that you're in Oxford visiting Ole Miss tonight. Is that right? He's like, nah, man, that's complete, it's fabrication. That's not, I'm at home or whatever. And like 30 minutes later, I get a picture from a restaurant in Oxford of Chris Jones, and I think maybe his dad or his mom, sitting with Hugh Freeze at a restaurant. Wow. And sure enough, I just thought, okay, maybe that's a picture from like 2 weeks ago or something, and whatever. But I trusted my guy, and I saw it, and I just couldn't believe it. And sure enough, found out later that night it was like 12:30 at night. This is the early days of Twitter. Obviously, message boards are crazy, but it's the early days of Twitter. And this was like live. I was live tweeting this thing pretty much. Like, here's what I'm hearing. And I remember at about 12:30 that night, finally confirmed, yeah, he's in Oxford right now. And then, meanwhile, I think maybe he was tweeting and then also texting me and other reporters, I'm not there. And we're like, dude, we got a picture of you. And then he went silent. And then that next day, Mississippi State, behind the scenes, was just incredibly PO'd that this was going on, because he was also not being clear with them. And they were preparing for him to not be at Mississippi State on that Saturday to visit. And he showed up to Starkville the next morning and went to the basketball game or whatever, and Mississippi State acted like nothing had happened. And then their recruiting went down to the wire, was dirty, maybe back and forth, I don't know. But I guess that kind of, I know it's not necessarily exciting, but it was exciting in the moment, because we were literally like live tweeting where this kid's whereabouts were, even though he was saying, I'm not there, you can't prove it, I'm not there. It's like, I got a picture of you. Yeah. that an Ole Miss fan and source sent to me. Goes, yeah, the guy's right over here. It's not many restaurants open at 9 o'clock, in Oxford tonight. Wow. So that's just one of many weird things. But it's not necessarily dirty, but it just kind of tells you how cloak and dagger recruiting is, even for simple things like that. I'm going to go have dinner in Oxford. I'm going to drive an hour to Oxford to go have dinner with them and be nice to them, and then go to Starkville the next day, which is, an hour away. But that was so cloak and dagger and secretive, and I don't know, it's just so silly.
Brandon, one day, I want to hear the story that you wanted to tell and didn't, because the story that you just told.
It's a baseball recruiting story, believe it or not.
Oh, well, let's hear it.
No, I can't. I can't. Well,
one day when we meet face to face, I had a buddy of mine from college who was coaching at Houston High School when all that was going on with Chris Jones, that story that you just told. And I have some extra parts of that story that I'll share with you that was told after the fact of that weekend.
Oh, boy. I heard I remember hearing
all secondhand information.
Yeah, I just remember hearing interesting things about his dad. And yeah. But anyway, it's recruiting. It's weird. That's why, listen, I could never be a full-time recruiting reporter.
No.
There's no way. I would go insane. I would. And I'm going to be honest with you, I hated having to do it for those, like, that last month of the recruiting cycle, because I was doing a lot of catch-up work on it anyway, getting to know these kids, but also it was like you see the stuff going on behind the scenes, and you're like, whoa, how did you grasp all this? And
right.
And these recruiting guys, they're relentless in their coverage. I mean, they're having to text and keep up with these guys every single day. And we're talking like early in the year and stuff, they're talking to hundreds of kids, just like a football staffer would be at a SEC football program, and they have to keep that stuff all straight and figure out who's doing what and who's doing when, and they're trying to beat other people and covering that. But for me, it was always like the whole thing was like, man, I'm already dealing with young enough kids anyway that are playing college football. I just don't want to deal with high school kids that are going through some of the most important moments that's going to steer the rest of their life. I don't want to be involved in that. I don't want to be the one that's adding stress to them just by simply asking questions all the time. I never feel comfortable doing that.
Right.
Yeah. To put some good, to wrap this up, to put some good in the world, and let you brag on someone, who was the nicest kid and the most honest kid that you covered during recruiting that you're like, wow, he's got a bright future in front of him?
Oh, man. Well, here's the thing, man. There's so many great kids to begin with that I'm so amazed by how they kind of keep their heads on straight and just kind of they don't listen to the outside forces all that much, and they keep it with their family. It's incredible to me. As far, I don't know about recruits, but kids that kind of didn't really change through the process and then went to their school and then had success and still didn't change, those are the kids I always remember. Like, one of my favorite players, and I didn't cover him in recruiting or anything, but I got to know him, and he probably doesn't know who the heck I am anymore. But, D Ford, when he was at Auburn, I only covered him for a year, but I was in the SEC and before that and knew about him. That kid has such a good heart, and he always had time for everybody. Just a little anecdote about him. He was like notorious. He's known for carrying around a gallon jug of water with him everywhere because he was big about hydration is key to everything. And we hear that all the time anyway, but he always had it. He'd bring it to interviews, he'd bring it to class, and it was always sitting next to him. And I remember that, but I also remember when he started getting big in 2013 and was potentially a first-round guy, and he was getting all this attention and everything. He was still the funniest guy, but also he was not afraid to say something controversial if he just truly believed it, which at that time was so not welcomed at Auburn because they'd been through so much stuff behind the scenes, but he was still doing it. And anyway, so I say that to say this. He goes through that incredible year. He predicts after they lose to LSU that they're going to win the SEC championship and compete for the BCS. And then it comes true. And every week leading up to it, he's like reminding all of us reporters, even like behind the scenes, not when he's at the podium, like, it's going to happen, guys. I'm telling you, I'm seeing it. And sure enough, it happened. So that always stuck with me. And then, but he was always so nice. And then I remember on his draft night, he invited reporters to his draft party at this club he rented out in his hometown. And we went, and we were kind of out of place, We go in there, and we're all trying to find Wi-Fi sitting on like a velvet couch and, all these lights and everything. And what I remember the most about that night was that it was such a beautiful moment. And it just showed you what type of kid he was. Because when you leave school and you're about to get drafted, it's almost like recruiting again. You're having to prove yourself.
Right.
And he had that big party, and you would think, oh, this is some big shindig, and he's just going to be completely, look at him, prima donna and all this stuff. But no, he pretty much just sat down all night. And they had the NFL draft up on the big screen that night. And D Ford was maybe a first-round pick at that time, but maybe borderline. So really that night was setting up for nothing but maybe disappointment because he was probably not going to get picked up in the first round. But he had the party anyway because he wanted to celebrate with his family and friends. And his entire family was there. And his family's big into music, and D Ford plays piano, and he does it very well.
Wow.
And I remember when the first round was kind of starting to wind down a little bit, and we're all sitting there like, I wonder if he's going to get picked tonight. Him and his entire family went up on the stage and just started jamming out and playing songs, and his mom was singing and doing gospel and stuff.
Wow.
And right behind him was this huge, like, 200-inch projection of the NFL draft. And what I remembered, I think I put it in my story, was at no point did they turn around to look or see what was going on with the NFL draft for about 45 minutes. They were just like, we're going to celebrate tonight and sing together and do what we used to do when D was with us, before college. We're going to hang out and sing and celebrate and dance. And I remember they did that, and it kind of hit. I was like, man, this is amazing. And then D disappeared for a second, and everything kind of got quiet, and he went back up on stage and put his phone on speakerphone and was talking to the Kansas City Chiefs right then and there.
Awesome.
And they didn't like it that he was on speakerphone because they didn't want him, but he was sharing it with everybody, him getting the call. Not necessarily like, hey, he as soon as he saw the phone number come up, he put it up and he ran up there and shared it with everybody. And it was an amazing moment. And some of these kids, obviously you can get kind of wrapped up in the moment and around yourself, but D Ford was someone who wanted to share that moment and with everybody there. And then, just on a selfish level, this doesn't matter at all to the story, but I remember afterward they brought out bottle service for him, and they had sparklers coming out and everything, and he was about to go party with his friends or whatever, and we walked up, and a couple of us reporters, and we're like, hey, D, we ain't got a chance to talk to you. Can we talk to you? And he's like, and literally as the bottle from the bottle service is going by him, he goes, yeah, sure, let's go over here. And they're like, D, they're trying to get D to get over there, and the sparklers like burn out and everything, and he's standing there talking to us. I mean, he should be celebrating, and he's talking to some stupid balding reporter and some, these nobodies, because he was just a good kid. And it's one of those guys I just always rooted for in the NFL, but there's so many kids that are probably like that, but that night stuck out so much to me.
Yeah. Great story.
My final question for you is this. You've covered Mississippi State. You've covered Auburn. The big game tomorrow night. Break it down how you see it and tell us who you think is going to win that game and why.
Does Mississippi State have more than 20 players available?
I have no clue.
They're getting some back this week. I think they're going to have more than 49.
Okay. So maybe still below the threshold, but still playing, but maybe over. Listen, man, breaking this one down is difficult for me because I don't know the personnel that are going to be playing in that game. I'll say this: if Tank Bigsby's healthy and he's playing for Auburn, they're going to win, and they're going to win by a couple touchdowns in Mississippi State tomorrow night. If Tank Bigsby's not 100% healthy and he kind of looks like he did in the Iron Bowl when he only got a few carries and his hip was bothering him, they're going to struggle offensively because that offense is just not built to be throwing downfield. The offensive line can't hold up, and they got to run the ball, and that's going to be a problem. Now, the thing for Mississippi State and their issue, figuring out their passing game, is that if Auburn has a strength defensively, it's actually their secondary.
Right.
So that kind of goes against what Mississippi State would want to do. And, I think, as you guys know, the problem with Mississippi State all year is just like, they face these zone coverages and they kind of refuse or can't kind of hit the check downs and just take what the defense gives them. And if that continues, I think Auburn wins this game pretty easily. But I'm interested to see kind of I've been saying this going into this week and next week, and December 19th when there's some games, how teams respond that know that the season's kind of, there's nothing really to play for.
Right.
And a virus is creeping up all around us, and some of them probably just want to go home.
Right.
For the first time since June. Christmas is here, and it's December 19th, and I'm playing a football game for a 1-win team or 2-win team. I'm not talking about Mississippi State, but anywhere.
Right.
What's the concentration like? We always forget about the human element and all this.
Yes.
But, man, these kids, some of them probably just want to go home and be with their families right now. And I worry about that, the mental health of the kids right now. But anyway, with the Auburn-Mississippi State game, I think Auburn should win it. But with Leach's offense, if it just starts clicking and they figure it out and they take what the defense gives them, who knows? But I think Auburn should win that game by double digits.
Gotcha. Brandon, before I let you go, I have no more questions. I just want to publicly thank you. You're one of our very first guests here on the show, and we're so grateful for that. But I also personally want to thank you because you're the reason why I got this fancy light here that I'm playing with. Yeah. And my trusty old microphone. You gave me some props of what to shop for. I thought you sounded so good the first time we did it. So, hey, thank you for helping us get going, brother. I appreciate that.
And congrats to you guys. Continued success. You guys are having some big guests. Getting Chris Lowe today is big. When I saw that, I was like, why am I even on this show?
Well, because you know Auburn and you know Mississippi State. So,
Chris Lowe's the man. And but anyway, thanks guys. Thanks for having me. Continued success and I appreciate it. And sorry, Stingray. These last few weeks have been crazy for me. I know we've been trying to set something up, and I've just been literally like the afternoons are like the worst time for me for whatever reason these last few weeks. But I'm glad we're able to make it work today.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you so much. And before we let you go, would you like to tell people how they can find you?
Yeah, I'm at Marcello on Twitter, and check out all of my work and everybody's work at 24/7 Sports at 247sports.com. And go watch our it's on YouTube and on our site, our college football playoff roundtable. We literally broke down every possibility and scenario. And it's a 45-minute podcast. It's video, it's audio if you want to listen to it. And you can skip around. But we explained every single scenario and the likelihood of it. And I think it's worth a listen.
And what's the title of that one?
I think it's just College Football Playoff Roundtable.
Okay.
If you go search for it on YouTube, 24/7 Sports, you should find it. And there's 6 of us just talking it up, and we planned it out, went through every scenario one by one that we had. A lot of discussion.
Good deal. I will post that to the page, brother.
Yes. Well, Brandon,
thanks, appreciate that.
If we don't talk to you before then, Merry Christmas to you
Yes.
and your family.
Yeah, you guys too, and everybody watching. Happy holidays. Enjoy these final 2 weeks of college football. Hopefully the bowl season doesn't get all screwed up because we're seeing cancellations and stuff. But enjoy the football, everybody.
Yes. Thank you. All right. Well, that was a really exciting interview, and we want to thank Brandon and Chris Lowe.
Yeah, we got to give Brandon a title to his setup there, like the Dark Dungeon or something. I mean,
yes,
that looks like something out of a Marvel movie.
Absolutely.
I'm always impressed by that setup.
And by the way, I don't know if you saw this or not, but Tom, and I'm not sure if he's still
Let's
with
see what
us
Tom's
here,
to say.
but Stingray, I noticed your WrestleMania shirt. Yes, right back here, WrestleMania 27. I actually did go to the Georgia Dome there, and I watched it, and it was a really, really good one. Let me go ahead. Let me I'm going to pull myself up full screen. There you go. You can see we had CM Punk versus Randy Orton, Triple H versus The Undertaker, round 1. We had John Cena versus The Miz, in which The Rock actually started his feud with John Cena at that WrestleMania. And then, of course, you had Edge, the Rated R Superstar, against Alberto Del Rio. So that was a really good pay-per-view, and I really enjoyed it while I was a wrestling fan. But I'm a wrestling fan no more.
What was Albert Del Rio's personal announcer? What was that guy's name?
I have no clue, but my gosh, Alberto Del Rio! I was like, wow.
Yeah, he had that slick back hair. I liked it.
He would always come out in those fancy cars. And then I remember at the end of their match at WrestleMania, Edge actually destroyed that car on the stage. It was so awesome.
I need a new car. Do you think Edge can come and destroy mine?
Sure, absolutely. Call him up.
Get on that for me, Steven.
I sure will. And also, I've got to tell you, man, the Undertaker's entrance at that WrestleMania, dude. I don't care where you were sitting in the Georgia Dome. When those flames go up as he's walking out, man, you can feel the heat from that stuff. It is so bone-chilling to watch him walk all the way to the ring. And that year, his entrance was "There Ain't No Grave Can Hold My Body Down" by the legendary Johnny Cash.
Wow. I'm a big Johnny Cash fan.
Creepy.
I'm a big Johnny Cash fan.
So, all right, man. Well, are you ready to bring on our third guest of the day?
Absolutely.
So, going ahead and kind of, since you're a Mississippi State fan, going ahead real quick and tell people who this guy was and what it was like watching him as a fan back in the day.
Well, in my early days of television, I was on the Mississippi State beat there for a little bit. And Sylvester Croom, took over a program that had hit rock bottom there at the end of Jackie Sherrill's run. But things just started going slow. And so when Croom took over, NCAA was in town. The team was not playing good already. Sanctions were coming. Everything was just kind of a terrible setup for Sylvester Croom and that staff. And so nobody was really, as far as recruits, were giving Mississippi State the time of day. And then lo and behold, Derek Pegues from South Panola. If you're here in the Magnolia State, you don't call him South Panola High School. You call him University of South Panola. Derek Pegues from South Panola, a very highly touted recruit, and he's going to tell you all about the schools that were recruiting him and what he was really thinking, but committed to Mississippi State, and it was a huge get for Sylvester Croom, and he was one of the main reasons things started turning around for the Bulldogs. Derek Pegues was a phenomenal player. You could have put him anywhere on the field, offense, defense, anywhere. But Derek Pegues played defense, he played special teams, and he made many memories along with many big plays for the Bulldogs. And he will be our next guest here on the Stingray Show.
Well, Heath, as you can see behind me, I've got my rack of cowbells, and we have a huge game this weekend between Mississippi State and Auburn. Now, of course, this game was rescheduled due to COVID earlier in the year, but this game is going to be played tomorrow. It is going to be a primetime game, and we are so excited to have a former Mississippi State Bulldog join us on the show, and I'm actually going to play some highlights of him to introduce this guy. You may remember him as Touchdown Pegues.
And the Rebels punted away. Justin Spark to the line drive to Pegues Fields. Derek Pegues in the open field. He will take it to the end zone. Touchdown Bulldogs. Good games against this Bulldog defense the last 2+ years. He will fire, ball batted in the air. It's picked off by the Bulldogs. Derek Pegues, touchdown Mississippi State. It went off the hands of the tight end, Cole Bennett.
So, without further ado, Heath, here is our very special guest today, Mr. Derek Pegues. Derek, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing awesome. What about you guys?
Doing good, man. Look, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, no problem at all. Thank you guys for having me on the show.
Derek, where are you these days?
I'm staying in Atlanta. I'm married. I moved to Atlanta maybe 4 years ago, and with my fiance at the time, and just got married last year. So I'm in Atlanta, happily married, and just working.
Hey,
Man,
where you working at these days?
I'm with a company called Ascendant. It's a distribution company.
Good deal.
well, how often do you get back to Starkville to some of the games there at Davis Wade?
Matter of fact, hadn't been to a game in the stadium until last year against Florida. When they played Florida last year, me and my wife went. We were planning on going to the Georgia game this year in
Right.
Athens and catching homecoming, but COVID threw a wrench in all those plans.
Yes.
Right.
Well, by the way, congratulations on getting married, my friend. Now, one of the big games that you played in was that 2007 Auburn game where you actually intercepted the pass on Auburn's first play. Can you kind of talk about the hype going into that football game?
Well, that was a big year. That was a big year
Yeah.
for us. That was my junior year, matter of fact. I had just recently got moved to safety that year, so that was my first year playing safety, and we were really hoping for some change going into this season, and it kind of started out a little rough with us playing LSU the first game and getting smacked,
Yes.
and so coming into the Auburn game, we knew it was going to be physical. Playing Auburn every year was to me probably the most physical game, and we just wanted to go down there and make a statement. We didn't want to be the bottom dwellers in the SEC again for that year, and we really wanted to go and make a statement.
And you guys actually had a defensive stand there towards the end of the game. Can you kind of talk to us a little bit about that defensive stand there in the end zone?
It was nerve-wracking. It was nerve-wracking. Yeah, because they were driving the ball pretty good that drive, and they got down to maybe I think like 10-yard line, 5 or 10-yard line, and throwing it in the end zone. So that was real nerve-wracking. And on the play, matter of fact, that I think Jamar, he tipped the pass in the back of the end zone, and if he had tipped it, I actually would have picked it.
Yes.
So. So that was real nerve-wracking when they got down there that close. But for us to come away with our defense playing lights out, matter of fact, that game, that was real big for us, just for the confidence for the rest of the season to make that big-time stop at the end of that game.
Derek, if I'm not mistaken, and I could be, were you part of that 3-2 ball game with State and Auburn?
Yes,
Yeah.
I was. Yes, I was.
So.
That was my senior year.
Yeah, I remember that game, and everyone talked about how bad it was. I thoroughly enjoyed that game because everybody was sitting on the edge of their seat every single play like, hey, this could be a bad snap. Hey, this could be a pick six. Hey, this could be a scoop and score. Like, everybody was sitting on the edge of their seat like, someone's going to score on one play, and it's going to be the ball game. That's going to be it. But what was that like for you guys battling it out on the field in a 3-2 final game? What was that like all game long?
Well, for the defensive guys, it was great. Those are the type of games we love. So it was great. Just for us, defensively, we were trying to make a play to really give our offense a short field to try to get at least in the field goal range. Because going into the fourth, we knew the way the game was going that if we can make one play, a big turnover or something, that the next team that scored probably was going to win the game.
Mm-hmm. Going back to your playing days there at State, what games were you guys always getting up for? I know that Kroom played at Alabama, and it always seems like you guys stepped up when you played Alabama. But outside of Alabama, what games were y'all just really looking forward to?
Well, for me personally, I always look forward to the LSU's, the Alabamas, the Auburns, LSU. I wanted them bad. I really wanted to beat LSU. Probably worse than I wanted to beat any team because I mean, you know the history. We've been there whooping boys for a while now. So me personally, I really wanted LSU. I wanted to beat them really bad. I know a lot of the other guys. It was mainly Ole Miss for them because you know all those mostly from Mississippi. But to me, it was always LSU who I really wanted to. I look forward to playing every year.
Derek, if I remember correctly, and this might have been your freshman year, there was a rainstorm during the LSU game down there in Baton Rouge, and there was a long delay there in the middle of the game. And toward the end of that game, there was a phenomenal interception there on the sideline. And if I'm not mistaken, that guy was you, a freshman you. Is that correct?
That's correct. That was actually my sophomore year. That was my sophomore year. Yeah, that is correct. Yeah, that was my first pick six. So that was kind of a turning point for me. The first time getting in the end zone in college, and it started a repetition of big plays coming. I think for like the next 3 or 4 games, I recorded an interception the next 3 or 4 games. So it was a big time play, and Coach Kroon was the first person to meet me on the sidelines after that play because we were getting blowed out at that time.
Right.
And just to keep battling and keep fighting, that was real big to him.
Derek, you brought up Coach Kroon. Yeah. Tell us your favorite Coach Kroon story.
My favorite Coach Kroon story. Ooh, I got a couple of them.
Hit us with them, brother.
Yes.
Well, my favorite one may have been we were playing Kentucky. We were playing Kentucky in Kentucky, and we won that game. Matter of fact, we won that game, and at halftime he came in, and we weren't playing as good as we should have been playing, and he kicked the exercise bike, and when he kicked the exercise bike over, when it hit the floor, it kind of bounced back up and came and hit him back. So. So it was funny at the time, but no one in there laughed at all because Coach Kroon was pissed. He was pissed, so nobody in there laughed at all. But after we had a pretty good laugh about it. So that was one of my favorite stories with Coach Kroon. And just Alabama, playing Alabama the first time we played them. It was just real emotional. My first year with him, like. You could tell he really wanted to get after him, and like he came to tears in the team meeting. He came to tears the morning before the game, and you could tell it was really big for him and for us to go out and get that victory for him that year. It was pretty awesome.
Do you still keep in contact with Coach Kroon and some of your former players too?
Oh yeah. Me and the players, a lot of the players that came in my class in 2005, we have a big group chat on Facebook, and we all talk through the group chat daily. Matter of fact, and a lot of the older heads that came in before me, like Andrew Powell, Delwan Robinson, a lot of those guys they're in on the chat too. So yeah, we keep up quite a bit, and I got Damon Glenn and Jeremy Johnson and Quentin Wesley, they stay right here in Atlanta, so we hang out a lot.
Good deal. You know, what is a Coach Kroon story off the field, whether it be in the classroom, practice field, anything? What's a fun Kroon story that you can share with that? Share with us about that.
Well, a funny one is my freshman year at Mississippi State, and it's a class we had. I think it was sociology class, and I walk into class, and I'm in class, and there was a couple more football players in there, and we've been in the class the whole entire class, and we finally look up, and we look in the back corner of the classroom, and we see a guy sitting in there with a Kango hat on, pulled down over his eyes, and we like, man, that guy looks familiar, and he stood up and said, "Hey guys, how you doing?" And it was Coach Kroon sitting in the back of the class, just chilling, the whole entire class, and that was fun to us, and we were like, "Man, I'm glad we showed up to class today." Yeah, because it would have been bad to not been in class and Coach Kroon has been there, but just things like that, man. showed you how much he cared about us off the field, how important us getting the education was to him. Um, just outside of football, how much he cared about you and really wanted to see you succeed off the field as well as on the field. That was real big with Coach Kroom, and he emphasized that daily.
Mm-hmm. Now you are the folklore history of Mississippi State with that famous punt return. Stephen, you got that highlight?
I do, yes.
Let's watch this highlight. I want to get your reaction after this.
And the Rebels punted away. Justin Spark to the line drive to Pegues Fields. Derek Pegues in the open field.
All right, now that ball being kicked to you. Now, I was at this ball game, Derek, and I know the punts earlier in the game kept landing in front of you and
Right.
kept landing in front of you. And I was wondering, I was like, why will he not scoot up 5 or 10 more yards? And I noticed right before that kick, you did scoot up about 5 more yards.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And then you had the return. But the greatest thing about that return is that you got a billboard put up right there in your hometown, right there on I-55, if I'm not mistaken, right outside Batesville.
Yes,
What was
sir.
that like going home, being so close to Oxford with that billboard there? What was the holidays like? What was it like when you went back home during the summer? I mean, what was that like? Just everyday life with that billboard.
The first time I saw it, I actually was coming. I was coming home from Starkville, matter of fact, and I seen it up. And at the time, it was a surreal moment to me to be on a billboard. Right on the Batesville line where we got bukus of Ole Miss fans there. So it was surreal for me. And just in home, it was kind of like being a rock star in Batesville. Have your own billboard up or whatever. And I had at the time 4 or 5 of my teammates playing in Ole Miss. So it was good to be able to rag on them constantly, telling them I was the first one to get a billboard up. So it was just a real cool moment. Really one of the highlights of my career at Mississippi State, to be able to make a play like that and to have such a big impact on our team and on our season. It was pretty awesome.
I would love to get your analysis right now of how excited you would be to play for Zach Arnett and this style of Mississippi State defense that they've played this year.
Oh, man, I would have loved it. I would love to play with Coach Collins when he was there.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, those guys had some hellacious defenses the last couple of years. I mean, and just watching Arnett's defense, we played a variation of that a lot my junior year. We played a lot of 3-3-5 my junior year because our strong point was our secondary. We had 3 good safeties in me, Fitzhugh, and Damon Glenn, and we had Mario Bobo still there as well. So it was just a way to be able to get all us on the field at the same time. And I really loved it. I loved that defense because it messed up a lot of the blocking schemes when it came down to in the run game, and it put a lot of athleticism on the field, which I see now. And I like his I just like his attitude. I like how hype he be, how he gets his defense hype. And I think we got lucky with getting him, especially at such a late time.
Yes.
Derek, going back to the punt return, I meant to ask you this a second ago. When that ball was coming to you, I mean, what was going through when did you know that you had a seam when that ball was coming to you? Just go through us, in your mind, what you were thinking during that play.
Well, the biggest thing was, like you said earlier, before that kick, I said I was going to scoot up at least 5 or 10 yards because, like you said, they were short hopping it all day. And we hadn't seen them do that all season. They was actually booming punts all season. Then they came into the game. I guess that was a way to try to take me out of the game in the return game. So it was just all about fielding the punt first because on those short hops, it can be kind of dangerous to try to catch one because it can easily bounce off you and you get a ball back. But at the time, I was just pressed to make a play. I had just dropped an interception that hit me directly in the face mask. Brent Schaefer hit me directly in the hand, and I dropped it. So that was on my mind because I knew it would have been like a 75-yard touchdown right there. We may have been up, but I was pressed. I was like, man, I need to make a play right here, and
Right.
just feeling the ball was the biggest point. And actually, when they kicked it, it was a great job on our return team to the rusher on the left side. He rushed straight up field, so the punter, wasn't able to get all the way to the sidelines like he wanted to kick it to the sidelines. So it made him kind of keep the ball in the middle of the field. So that was big for us because their punt team was angled toward the to their sideline. And just feeling it, and when I feel it, I said I was just gonna hit it downhill as hard as I can and just take the results. I didn't really know I was gone until I cleared everybody, and I just was running, and I felt
Yes.
it may have been Jamel on my back, and that's when I knew. I heard the crowd going crazy, so I knew then, yeah, I'm out of here.
And I've got one final question for you, Derek. This weekend, obviously, Mississippi State takes on Auburn. Can you kind of break down that matchup in 2020 and tell us who you like to win that game?
If our offense comes out and matches the intensity of our defense, I think we can win this game. I think it'll be a low-scoring game. Maybe if we can keep it in the 20s, I can see us easily winning this game 24-21, somewhere in there. Because our defense has really been playing lights out the last couple of weeks. And our offense has come out and protect the football for one. I really like Will Rogers. I think he's going to be a star. And Watley as well. I think he's going to be a definite superstar. But if they can come out, but we have to run the football.
Yes.
Which we don't do a lot of. But we got to adjust and run the football to just give our defense a little time to stay on the sidelines. But if we can come out and control their ground game, I think we'll be okay. And I feel like we can win. We can come out with a victory somewhere like 24-21, 24-17, somewhere there.
I got you. I got a couple of more questions for you, Derek. Your recruitment seemed to be kind of fun and interesting. If I'm not mistaken, the term that Coach Kroom was, you were a secret commit there, and it was a little bit shocking there on signing day. Talk about your recruitment and how that went about and went down.
Well, Mississippi State wasn't high on my radar at first. It was actually, I told my coach my senior year if Tennessee offered me, I was going to Tennessee no matter what. And they offered me. Coming into my senior year, they offered me, and I went on a visit up there. And it was cold, man. It was really cold up there when I went up there. So, and that kind of swayed me away from going to Tennessee. And Coach Haley, man, he was recruiting me, and he won me over, man, just with his honesty. He stayed on my tail, like he didn't let me breathe. Anytime it was a chance to talk to me, anytime it was a chance to come see me, he was there, and he was always honest with me. At one point in time, he actually told me, he was like, man, Coach Kroom told me to quit recruiting you, man, because he didn't think we had a chance of getting you. And I was like, what? But yeah, actually committed before I even came on a visit to Mississippi State. I had never been to Mississippi State, and I committed just off the strength of Coach Haley, man. We had a real great relationship, and I committed to him, and he was like, can I tell Coach Kroom? I was like, yeah, you can tell Coach Kroom. And he called Coach Kroom right there, and me and Coach Kroom got on the phone, and we had a nice long conversation. And just the man Coach Kroom was, it felt like somebody I wanted to play for. Talking to him, I knew he cared about me way beyond the football field, and that was big to me. That was real big to me. And like I said, I committed, and I still had like 4 visits left. I had a visit to Notre Dame lined up, Michigan, Ole Miss, and Florida. And I had those visits left, and I told him, yeah, I'm committed. I'm coming. You can start telling other recruits I'm coming. I just didn't want to announce it before that time
Right.
because I still had the Mississippi Alabama game and the Army All American game. So and he kept it under wraps. He kept it under wraps. We told other recruits. I got on the phone, talked to a few recruits, Anthony Johnson, Archie Sims, Jesse Bowman. I told all those guys I was coming, so we can go ahead and get those guys in the fold. But yeah, it was big, man, and people were really pissed in my hometown of Batesville that I decided to go to Mississippi State, man. I'm saying after signing day, I was getting death threats to my house.
Wow.
People were threatening to burn my home down. So yeah, we had a police watching our home for like the next week or so, just to make sure people wouldn't do anything crazy.
Man, that takes it a little bit too far, doesn't it?
Yeah, I didn't realize how serious it was
Right.
until then. But because most guys that come from South Carolina, they go right up the road to Ole Miss. So
Yeah.
I guess they thought, like, he's at South Carolina, he's a given, he's a lock. But nah, man, I bucked the system and went to the best school in Mississippi.
I wasn't going to ask you this, but you brought it up. The Army All-American game. What is that like as a high school kid to go to that? What's the experience like? And what was a wow moment for you? What was the first wow moment for you when you went down there for that game?
The experience is awesome. The week down there, they have a lot of things for you to do. Showing you around it. We was in San Antonio, Texas. That was my first time even being in the state of Texas. And my first wow moment was Jarrell Poe. We was in practice, and the three guys, me, him, and Josh Collins, were the three guys from Mississippi that got selected to go. And it was a play in practice. Josh Collins was at center, Poe was at nose, and he had pancake Jarrell, and he jumped up and he was hollering and yelling, "I'm the best from Mississippi," and this and this and that. And so Jarrell came to the sideline and he was like, "Watch when I go back out there." And, and when he went back out, he got back in, and we went back out there. In the first play, he comes off the ball, and man, he hits Josh, and Josh comes off his feet maybe 3-4 feet in the air, and Jarrell just drives him in the ground, man, and the coach stopped practice. He was like, "Yeah, that's it, we done."
Yeah.
And I was like, Lord, I was already friends with Jarrell, and I knew what kind of beast he was because we played him in the state championship game my sophomore year, and he took over the game. He was the best defensive player I had ever seen in high school. He completely took over the game by himself, and they beat us in the state championship my sophomore year. And just that moment, man, it was crazy out there. And I got another one.
Hit me.
Yeah, they had a Popeyes chicken eating contest down there, and Jarrell said he was gonna win it, and he won it running away.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was amazing. It was amazing just to be down there amongst all of those great players. You had the Deshaun Jacksons of the world, Mark Sanchez, Ryan Perlews, just a lot of big time guys, and to be able to go down there and compete against them guys and hold my own was pretty special.
Yeah, I'll make this question very short. If Ron Perlew came to Mississippi State, he would have been a legend probably.
Oh my God. Oh my God, man. Ryan Perlew, he actually called me a few days before signing day and said he was coming. What happened after that, I don't know. He ended up going to LSU, but yeah, we had a conversation, and he told me he was coming to Mississippi State, but I don't know what happened after that.
Yeah, that's going to lead me to one question I was going to ask you. You don't have to mention any names or any schools, but what is the craziest recruiting story that you have ever heard?
The craziest recruiting story I heard.
Or you can give the names of the school if you'd like. It doesn't matter to us.
Okay, yeah. Well, Ole Miss. I went on my visit over there. I was already committed to Mississippi State, And so I went on my visit, and Coach Ogeron came and picked me up from the high school in his Hummer. And
Gosh.
yeah, he had a Hummer, and we drove to Oxford, man. And he bumped Tupac all the way to Oxford, driving like 90 to 100 miles per hour, man. And just his energy was crazy. He's probably the most energetic coach I've ever been around. But I went on my visit there, and I woke up Saturday morning, and I was like, man, I'm not gonna do this. I ain't feeling this visit. And I called one of my homeboys, because Batesville is right down the road, and I said,
Right.
hey man, come get me. I'm not going here. I'm done with this visit. And he came and picked me up, and they came to the room, and I was gone. And so the coaches were calling, they were like, hey man, where you at? We coming to get you. And I said, man, I'm in Batesville. I ain't gonna waste you guys' time. I'm not coming there. And it
Wow.
was wild after then, because they put out a story that while I was on my visit over there, I had stolen a PlayStation or something from a house party, and the story had started circulating. So my high school coach, at the time, Ricky Woods, he heard it. He was like, "Man, I know you ain't did." I said, "Coach, man, I left my visit. I didn't grab anything over there." He called him and was like, "Hey, you guys aren't going to be able to recruit anybody over here again if you guys don't clear this story up." And
Wow.
and the story was it was gone after that. So yeah, that was pretty wild. Wild little events happened with Ole Miss, man. So yeah, that's why I still hate them.
Yeah.
Crazy. Hey, my last question for you, Derek, is what is the funniest trash talking story that you've ever been a part of? Whether you were involved or heard about it or saw it yourself with somebody else, what's the best trash talking story you've ever seen?
Oh man, we were playing Arkansas. We were playing Arkansas, and I always talk when I'm on the field. I That's just how I play. I always talk. So I'm talking trash to these guys, and I was by their sideline, and the guy said, "Hey man, hey three, you need to shut up, man. You doing a lot of talking with those ugly uniforms on." And I said, "Wow, man!" I shut up after that, because he got me. Because at the time we had some terrible unis, and we were
Yeah,
looking pretty poo out there. So, yeah, that was one of the worst ones. He shut me up for the rest of the game. I said, "Yeah, I can't talk, and I ain't got a lot of swag out here right now."
I got you. Well, Derek, my very last question is: if you could play today, who would you love playing for? What coach would you really enjoy playing for?
Oh man, Dan Mullen, without a doubt.
Yeah.
I love Dan Mullen. I love what he did with our program. I think Dan Mullen is a top five, top three coach in college football. And just the
Give
way
us your
he
top
developed.
three.
My top three, well, Nick Saban is number one.
Right.
I think Dabo is number two from what he's done with that Clemson program. And shoot, man, I may put because Urban Meyer's not in there anymore. I may put Dan at number three,
Mm.
man. And Jimbo Fisher, he's definitely in the top five. And Hugh Freeze. Hugh
Yeah.
Freeze is I think he's a really good coach. And when he gets another opportunity to coach a Power Five conference, hopefully it's not in the SEC.
Yeah.
But yeah, Dan Mullen is he's my favorite coach out there, man. I love Dan Mullen. I love how he develops his guys. We've never had as many first round picks that I saw coming out of Mississippi State with Dan Mullen. And I mean, from even Dak, he wasn't a highly recruited player. He wasn't even getting recruited to play quarterback. And the work Dan Mullen did with him, and to have us number one in the country, I think that's people don't realize how big that is at Mississippi State
Yeah.
with the talent that we get coming in. For him to have us number one in the country and have us constantly winning 8 to 9 games a year, I think that was pretty special. I hated to see him go.
I hear you.
And my last question for you is this. You played with Titus Brown, correct?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Can you tell us a fun story about Titus?
Ooh, man. Oh man, we got a couple with Titus. Titus, man. I tell you what, the Alabama game when Anthony Johnson returned the
Yeah.
interception that game. Titus had the pressure that made him throw the ball early, and on the pick I had that game, Titus had the pressure, and he constantly comes after the game. And you know his famous saying is, "If you want to win, let Titus spin," because his
Yeah.
spin move was his spin move was pretty deadly at the DN position, and he constantly rags us like, "Hey man, y'all owe me 3 or 4 steak dinners, man. With all them pick sixes, I'm getting y'all back there." So that's one of the biggest ones, and just Titus with Coach Kroom, man. That was him and Coach Kroom was they were real close, and Coach Kroom always talked to us about Titus when he first got there to when he left, and how much of a knucklehead he was to just becoming a leader on the team. One of the guys I looked up to while he was there, and just how he took the team under his wing, and he was one of the biggest leaders on the team to be able to change his entire image like that. It was pretty special.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Titus, look, man, we want to thank you for joining us today. And before we let you go, is there anything that you would like to shout out, tell people how they can find you, that kind of stuff?
No, man. I just I appreciate you guys having me on. I appreciate you guys giving me a chance to talk some Mississippi State football, and it's always go State and go to hell, Ole Miss.
Yes, thank you so much. And if we don't talk to you before, have a very Merry Christmas, and hopefully we can do it again soon.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. I'll be looking forward to it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Derek.
Thank
Pleasure
you.
is all ours.
Man, that was fantastic, and especially with him being a former player, having a big-time impact on an Auburn football game, and the Auburn game being tomorrow.
Yeah. Looking back at those guys, that's over a decade ago, but those guys, those memories are still there. They still enjoy talking about it. And that's what makes it fun is college football is fun because it makes so many memories, not only for the folks on the field, but off the field. And it's always fun to relive them and hear those stories.
And we are back here on the Stingray Show, and hope everybody really enjoyed that interview with Derek Pegues. I know that we did, and we actually enjoyed watching it again.
Yeah. To hear those guys talk about the rivalry and the things that they remember, it just kind of tickles you. But, when Titus spins, that's when we win.
That was an awesome little story right there. All right, man. Well, let me ask this: Are you ready to go to? I have 3 highlights from last weekend that we were not able to get to on Tuesday because of Tim Brando. And so, are you ready to run through these 3 highlights real quick before we go to the games?
Hey. Schoolhouse Rock said it best. 3's the magic number. Let's roll, dude.
Okay. Well, this one, the next 3 are going to be really good, feel-good stories because we need these in 2020. The first one is the Marshall Thundering Herd. They lost and were shut out by the Rice Owls this past weekend. And not only were they shut out, the Rice Owls forced 5 Marshall interceptions and beat Marshall 20-0. That was the first win over a ranked team since 1997. Rice's first win on the road since 1991. And the first shutout against a ranked team since 1960.
Wow. 1997. You know who the breakout band of 1997 was, Stingray?
No clue.
Hanson. Mbop. Remember that one?
Who?
Hanson. You remember Hanson?
Never heard of them.
What? You don't remember Mbop?
Nope.
Oh, Steven, you disappoint me, my friend. Yeah, that'll be something a little fun that you can listen to after the show.
Right.
No, 1997. Wow, that was a long time ago. Let me think. The Tennessee won the national championship in 98. 97,
Yes.
I think, was Nebraska. I
Yep.
think Nebraska just manhandled and shamed Tennessee
Yes.
in the national championship game. What is Nebraska and Tennessee doing now? They must still be great in football, right?
No, they're not.
Wow.
So hats off to the Rice Owls. And by the way, this team has been absolutely decimated all season long with COVID issues, with postponed and canceled games. So hats off to them.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, 1997, the last year, the senior year for number 16, Peyton Manning, up
Yeah.
on Rocky Top.
Yes.
That's how long ago 1997 was.
That's insane, man.
Hanson, you've never heard of Hanson?
No, never. All right, now next up is going to be another shocker. And them winning this game is not necessarily the shocker, but the reason that they are still undefeated is the shocker. It is the San Jose State Spartans, 5-0 for the first time. Get this, Heath, since 1939.
You know who the breakout artist in 1939 was, Stephen?
I'm sure you don't either.
I don't. Man.
And listen to this. San Jose State is 5-0 and quietly running the Mountain West Conference, yet they aren't ranked.
You know, that probably will change after this weekend if they get a win.
Yes.
You know, I always like watching the Warriors. I've always been a fan of Hawaii. I cannot tell you why. I don't know if it's because I'm a night owl and I enjoy staying up watching late night football when they're on the island. But, you know, San Jose State, which was voted multiple times the best party school in America.
Yes.
A lot of people don't know that about the Spartans. But, you know, San Jose State making a little bit of noise out there on the West Coast.
Right.
I'd like to see them enter the rankings, but who knows?
Yes. So San Jose State, the reason I showed that, it's not because of the win over Hawaii. It's because of the 5-0 start for the first time since 1939. Oh, and by the way, San Jose State takes on Nevada and Las Vegas in about 2 hours our time.
Wow, look at you, man.
Yep.
I'm sure Ray will be there.
Yes.
I know Ray was watching earlier.
Right. So definitely. So it's Nevada and San Jose State tonight from Las Vegas. So that's why I had to show that. All right. And the last one. Now, I don't have a graphic. I don't know what happened to the graphic. But this one right here tops it all. Now, you know, we were talking about on the show, I think it was Tuesday, about Rocky Long at San Diego State. Do you know what he's doing now?
I thought he retired. No?
He is the defensive coordinator at his alma mater, the New Mexico Lobos, and they just won a game and snapped a huge losing streak last weekend when they knocked off Wyoming.
Wow, that's impressive. That's very impressive. You know, Wyoming's a good club. I mean, this year, COVID-related, a lot of opt-outs, all that. But Wyoming, here in the past few years, have been a very good football team. They've given other teams lots of headaches and trouble.
Right.
But, you know, New Mexico has always been kind of the, the whipping post for so many schools. And so for Rocky Long to kind of get things going and making things happen out there, Rocky Long is one of the greatest minds ever in college football. He does not get enough love or praise. So for New Mexico to go out there and do what they did, huge props, massive props. to snap that losing streak.
And I think, if I remember correctly, they snapped a 22-game losing streak at New Mexico.
Gosh, someone had to do it.
And, dude, how embarrassing, though, for Wyoming.
Well, Wyoming will be fine. Wyoming will bounce back. Yeah. Their program won't go. Their floor is not as low as New Mexico, but
right.
I always think it's great when these schools who are not traditional winners find a way to start winning and making some noise and going to bowl games. I remember when Louisiana Lafayette went to a bowl game their very first couple of years ago.
Yep.
Under Mark Hudspeth. The Superdome was almost just packed out because Louisiana Lafayette's so close by. And so when you hear those stories and see those kind of things happen, it makes it makes so much fun. And college football spreads and teams, the non-traditional teams, start winning. It's a great story. We love seeing it.
Right.
Just like Indiana this year. I think everybody would have been tickled to death to see Indiana, in the college football playoff. We knew it wasn't going to happen, but we were all pulling for them.
Right. Hey, man, now we get to a highlight of Week 15 action that actually was last night. And no, it is not the handshake issue between Georgia Tech and Pitt.
My phone blew up when that happened last night.
It was the other game, and actually I'm calling this an upset, Heath, simply because they were a 10-point dog and actually found a way to win this game going away, and they also eliminated this team from a potential back-to-back conference title. It is Southern Miss, the Golden Eagles, who have had, count them, 3 interim head coaches this year and 3 different starting quarterbacks, knock off first place Florida Atlantic last night at home by a final of 45-31.
Wow. Stephen, and how many interims do they have this season? 3? So
3.
4 total coaches
3.
this year?
Yes.
That's just crazy. 4 different coaches.
Yes.
And you're playing the first place team in your conference and you knock them off.
Yes.
Phenomenal job by the Eagles.
But see,
Southern Miss to the top.
Yes. Florida Atlantic was supposed to take on Marshall in the Conference USA Championship game. Now it looks like it will be Marshall versus UAB because of Southern Miss playing spoiler.
Yeah, Billy Clark, watch out.
Yes. So that is Southern Miss to the top, and they just hired a brand new coach. So he was actually there watching the game. He was not coaching, but my good friend Heath Hinton of Big Gold Nation down there in Hattiesburg actually told me that Will Hall was on the scene last night to watch that team play, and what a great opening game for him to see them actually come together and have camaraderie together for that huge win against FAU.
Yeah, so many props to Southern Miss. This has been a season filled with more challenges than I think any college football team has seen this year. And so massive props. 4 different head coaches, players opting out, your best players opting out, losing the head coach after game 1, got a new head coach, but he's not coaching.
Yes.
Things are just crazy in Hattiesburg, but they pulled it off. But, we mentioned Billy Clark earlier at UAB. He's now in the championship game. Billy Clark and the Blazers. Does that sound like a good band name? I'd go watch that.
Yes. All right, man. Well, are you ready to start the picks for tonight? We actually have 2 games that we're picking tonight. Now, there are 3 games on the docket, but the other one was, I think, North Texas versus UTEP. Boring. But these 2 games are actually going to be quite impressive. And the first one, and the reason that I picked this game is because it is a rivalry game. It is for the battle between the two Arizona teams. It is going to be, now forgive me, Heath, 0-2 Arizona State at 0-4 Arizona. Now, obviously, last year, Coach Summerlin lost to Arizona State. They're at Arizona State. Now he's getting a chance to basically get revenge. And I think he does. I'm actually going with the Wildcats winning this game just simply because Arizona State has not played that many games and Arizona has.
Reasonable enough. My high school baseball coach was on the national championship baseball team of 1975 for the Arizona Wildcats. He used to call Arizona State the Scum Devils.
Yes.
So the Wildcats versus Scum Devils tonight. Wow. This is the pillow fight of the night, right?
Yes.
Winless
The
teams.
other game's really good.
Yeah, winless teams fighting it out. Charles Barkley said it best: two ugly girls fighting.
Yes.
Both schools hired questionable head coaches. Not that their character was questionable. It's just the picks were kind of questionable. The hires were like, why did you pick them? Is that really the best option you had? So, I'm going to go Arizona State just because I think they start putting things together. And Arizona's, after 4 games, you don't have it together. I don't think you're going to get it together. But I will say this. It's a rivalry game. Those schools do not like each other at all. They do not like each other.
Yes.
So it'll be fun to watch those two teams kind of battle up. It's a rivalry game, and tonight someone's season is going to be made. Tonight after this, hey, we had a successful season because we beat our in-state rival.
Yes.
Who it's going to be, I don't know. But I'm going to lean with the Scum Devils.
Really? Okay, so you're going different from me. Okay,
Yeah.
I understand that. All right, next up is going to be, and I actually got the times flip-flopped. This one is actually going to be at 9 o'clock our time, not 6. It is going to be 6-1 Nevada traveling down to Vegas because Nevada is in Reno.
Right.
They're traveling down to Vegas to take on 5-0 San Jose State. This game is going to be on the CBS Sports Network. This game is actually even because the odds makers don't know who to pick there. However, the Football Power Index gives San Jose State a 54% chance to win this game. I'm actually going with the Spartans of San Jose State winning this game, and I actually think that they continue to be undefeated.
Wow. The Wolfpack. We'll see what happens. Hey, Stephen, what was the reason for moving the game from Reno to Vegas?
Because it was supposed to be in San Jose, but because of the COVID restrictions in San Jose, they had to move it to Vegas, and they did not want to move it to Nevada because San Jose was supposed to be the home team this year.
Wow. That's a little crazy.
Yes.
I'm going to pull for San Jose State in this one, but that might mess with their psyche a little bit. They lost the home game. Now they got to travel. They got to play a home game in a stadium that's not theirs in a state that's home to the other team. I don't like that, Stephen. That's a lot of negatives going against San Jose State. I will be pulling for the party school, but I think Nevada's going to win this one.
Okay.
I got the Wolfpack.
Have you watched San Jose State at all?
Nope.
Have you heard anything about them?
Actually, you know what? I take that back. I did watch San Jose State earlier this season. I did watch them, yeah.
All right. Can you tell me who their quarterback is?
Oh, man, I need multiple choice on this one. Joe Kane, formerly of Eastern University. No, I don't know.
Former Texas A&M Aggie Nick Starkel.
Really?
He is
You know what? I did know that. I did know that.
playing the ball in college for San Jose State.
I thought Nick Starkel outperformed Kellen Mond multiple times. Starkel won that job from Mond twice. He did it in the summer practice going into the season. Then he gets hurt. He came back from injury and outperformed him in backup duty and got the job a second time.
And the second time, they actually lost a close game out there in the Rose Bowl versus UCLA. He got that start for A&M.
Yeah, I remember that. So I was shocked when they opened up that competition again and put Mond in.
Yes.
Yeah, Starkle.
So that's the reason I'm actually going with the San Jose State is because of the Nick Starkle quarterback there.
Yeah, like Nick Starkle. Not like him a lot.
Yes. All right, next up is going to be, now I will have to say this, before we pick this game, the legendary play-by-play guy for the University of Alabama, Eli Gold, has tested positive for COVID. So he will not be making the trip up to Fayetteville, Arkansas tomorrow to call the game Alabama at Arkansas. I do not know who is taking his place, but it will not be Eli Gold on the call. And that's going to be an interesting little thing to see how Alabama, performs without him being there. That adds a little bit of excitement to this game. But it is number 1 Alabama 9-0 at 3-6 Arkansas, 11 a.m. on ESPN. Alabama is a 31.5 favorite. How in the world do you score 0.5? I've always, wondered that. But Alabama has a 97% chance to win this game.
97. I'll take the over.
Yes.
Arkansas has had a phenomenal season this year. They've outperformed our expectations like crazy. They had that heartbreaking loss to Mizzou last week. But, going back to Eli Gold, those players, I bet you half the players couldn't even tell you who Eli Gold was.
Right.
But 409 consecutive games for Eli Gold and the Crimson Tide. That streak will come to an end.
Yes.
And that's sad. I would love to know. Yeah, I'd love to know what Jack Crystal's number was of doing it 54 years, 56 years. I think it was 56 years. I'd love to know how many games he went, but wow. I believe his first game, Eli Gold's first game, they said was still doing NASCAR races back then. I don't know if he's still doing the NASCAR races now. I know he was about 10 years ago, but I don't think he's doing them now. But, yeah, wow.
I was born in 81.
There you go.
I was born in 81. So there you go. All right, so I'll take Alabama, and I think both of us are going to roll Tide, right?
Yep, let's roll on, brother.
All right, next up is going to be a game that was rescheduled because of COVID issues up in Columbia, Missouri. It is going to be 11 a.m. on the SEC Network. It's going to be 6-2 Georgia at 5-3 Missouri. Georgia is only a 13-point favorite, and the Football Power Index gives Georgia an 83% chance to win this game. Missouri has been coming into their own a little bit with wins over Vandy and Arkansas, but I think that it goes south tomorrow. I'm going, sick 'em dogs.
You scared me, Stephen.
Sorry, man.
Yeah, Missouri kind of hit a little bit of a hot streak. If Coach Drink wins tomorrow, he's definitely SEC Coach of the Year. I think he might have wrestled that away from Sammy Pittman last week. We talked about that all season. The winner of the Missouri Arkansas game was going to be considered SEC Coach of the Year. Missouri's got an uphill battle tomorrow. It's going to be tough, but Georgia has not been consistent. They haven't been consistent on both sides of the ball all year. Now, JT Daniels is starting to figure some things out. That offense is starting to figure some things out. But, Georgia lost a couple of wide receivers here earlier this week. They've opted out for the season. Freshmen hit the transfer portal. And there's some other players kind of leaning toward the transfer portal. So there's something going on behind the scenes at Georgia. I don't know what it is. I don't know if the team's losing faith in the offensive coordinator, if they're losing faith in Kirby Smart, losing faith in each other. I don't know. But I know something's going on. Missouri, on the other hand, hey, they're starting to win, Steven. They're starting to make some things happen and winning respectfully. So, you know what? I'm going to go out. I'm going to go out here a little bit. M-I-Z.
Z-O-U.
There you go.
But yeah, I'm still going Georgia in that one. All right, next up is going to be and you know, I really hate that we have COVID this year because this actually really hurts this football team because early in the year, you know, the two teams in the Pac-12 were ranked were Oregon and USC. This team has actually caught fire, but it's too little, too late. It is going to be tomorrow, 1-2 Utah at undefeated 4-0 Colorado. Now, I'm telling you what, if this was a normal college football year, Colorado might actually be a team that could make some noise in the 4-team playoff. Unfortunately, they just don't have enough time. I'm going Colorado in this win, though, tomorrow. I'm sorry, tomorrow.
Yeah. You know, Utah is a very good team, and they've hit a road bump there. You know, we've seen it a couple of times with some other schools like Oklahoma. Oklahoma is playing some phenomenal football, some great football, but you know they took 2 early losses.
Right.
You know, you look at Penn State, great football team, took some early losses. You know, so with that being said, I'm going with Utah. I'm going with the Utes tomorrow. Look for the Utes to start putting some things together, and I think they're going to run Colorado off the field.
Well, there's not that many good 11 a.m. games, so I'm actually going to tune into this game to actually see Colorado play for the first time. But like I said, Colorado only has a 53% chance to win, according to the Football Power Index. All right, next up is going to be another pillow fight, but I really wanted to do this game because of, you know, it was Sad Valley for a little while. Now it's becoming Happy Valley again because Penn State has won 2 games this year. They are no longer winless, and they're hosting 2-4 Michigan State, 11 a.m. on ABC. The Football Power Index gives Penn State an 86% chance to win this game, and I'm actually going with the Nittany Lions in this game over Michigan State.
Wow. I'm not going to disagree with that. I do not think this is going to be a good game. I think this game might be a snoozer by halftime.
Right.
I like Penn State. I like Penn State big. I like Penn State going away. I like Penn State all day.
Yes.
Hey, Steven, if the Spartans don't win the coin toss, they may not win anything for the rest of the day.
Right. Now, the reason that we are doing this game is because this caught my eye. Okay. Coastal Carolina last weekend had the biggest win in their school history.
Absolutely.
By beating BYU. They are now ranked 13th in the country. They are the first team to ever reach 10-0 in the Sun Belt. Everybody's patting them on the back. Oh, you're so good. Now they've got to travel to Alabama to take on a very sneaky good Troy football team. Heath, is there any chance of a Troy upset here?
Absolutely, there's a chance for an upset. You know,
yes.
I'm a fan of the Chanticleers. Our good friend of the show, Tim Brando.
Yes.
I was looking at his top 10. I want to say he had the Chanticleers in, I believe he had them ranked 6 in his top 10. Also, our good friend of the program, Will Colmeyer, will be on the call tomorrow doing this game. So I look forward to seeing Will. I always look forward to seeing Will. We've worked on a couple of projects together, and Will loves doing play-by-play, just like Timmy B does. But I think this game can be sneaky good.
Yes.
But I will say this. I think Coastal Carolina, they're just having a magical season. And once you start building these crazy wins, even when you get in close games, like we saw last week with a tackle on the goal line to save the game, against a future NFL quarterback, I just think the Chanticleers, they're the magical team of 2020.
Yes.
So with that being said, I will not be shocked at all if the Trojans and the men of Troy
Yes.
beat Coastal Carolina, but I like the Chanticleers to keep on going against the men of Troy.
I think it's closer than the experts think of 12.5. I think it's maybe a 7-point game. But like I said, I think Coastal Carolina, or like you said, I think Coastal Carolina is the better football team, and I think they find a way to win this game.
I think it's less than a score, and I wouldn't be shocked if it's a blocked field goal at the end.
Now, the next game is actually going to be played at the opponent's home for the first time in 77 years. This is usually a neutral site game, Navy versus Army. However, tomorrow it will be Navy at Army due to COVID issues. Navy comes in at 3-6. Army, the home team, is 7-2. Gary Danielson and Brad Nessler will be on the call for this game. Army is currently a 5.5-point favorite, and the Football Power Index likes the Black Knights by 75% to win this game.
How many years has it been since it's been played?
77.
Wow, I hate for that streak to be broken. I just hate for that streak to be broken. But at least we get the game.
But I think if memory serves me correctly, Army's not allowing fans to their games. I know Navy didn't, because the first game between Navy and BYU this year, there were no fans in the stadium, and I think that's the same at Army.
Yeah, my grandfather served in the Army. He was a disabled veteran. He was actually president of the Mississippi Disabled Veterans. So every year in this game, I always, I had a great uncle that was in the Navy, but I always pull for Army in this game just out of the respect and honor of my grandfather. So, hey, I'm with the Black Knights. Go Army, beat Navy.
Hey, man, I've got to say this, and I'm going to roll the highlights too while I say this. I have been to a bunch of Alabama-Auburn games. The most recent one was a couple of years ago. I have been to 2 Egg Bowls between Mississippi State and Ole Miss in Starkville. There are a lot of other, rivalry games that I do want to go to, but this one right here is definitely on my bucket list to go see Army and Navy at a neutral site. I think that would be something impressive.
Maybe the budget of the Stingray show can take us there next season, right?
Maybe. But do you not want to at least once in your lifetime experience Army-Navy?
Absolutely. I was kind of happy they moved the game to Philadelphia years ago, just because so much history of our country happened in Philadelphia.
Yes.
But, even if they moved this game to, Pensacola, Florida, I would still watch it every year.
Right.
The Army-Navy game is a very special game. I love how our country builds it up. I love how the networks build it up. I like that the President of the United States, and no, we're not going into politics, but I like how the President of the United States from either party usually attends this game.
And flips the coin.
Yeah. And so with that being said, I thoroughly appreciate CBS doing this game, and they do it up big. They do it up right. And America enjoys watching this game. Yeah, it's not the best football in the world, but it's about so much more than that. And I love the pregame of how they come out and all that. I hope they don't cut that out tomorrow. I would love to see the helicopters fly over very slowly over the stadium when Army comes out, to see the Navy fighters go by so fast. So, yeah, I would love to see I hope they keep all the pomp and circumstance for tomorrow's game. But at least we get this game. And I'm still sad that it's not at a neutral site. That's what makes it so great. But, tomorrow will be a fun game to watch.
Absolutely. Well, let me go ahead and pull up the other highlights here. It is number 17, North Carolina, 7-3 at lonely, forgotten about Miami, ranked 10th in the country and only has one loss. But because of that one loss and Notre Dame joining the ACC, everybody just completely forgot about poor, pitiful Miami. And I feel like that is a quote unquote screw job by the ACC this year. Do you not? I mean, because Miami is a really good team and should, and they should get a rematch against Clemson.
Yeah, I would like for them to. I think that would be most ideal. We talked about Manny Diaz many times on the show. He's a phenomenal coach, a very impressive recruiter. Manny Diaz has got that program going in the right way. Manny Diaz, being from Miami, his father was mayor of Miami.
Yes.
So with that being said, the secret to success for any program, excuse me, the secret to success of any program is have a coach who wants to be there, who is excited about the place, who loves the place, who wants to be there.
Right.
And fill in the great coaches around that. But the top guy has to be in love with the place. Manny Diaz is in love with Miami. Miami is on the rise. Miami is going to do some huge things in the years to come. They're going to get the recruits. Most of the recruits in Florida are from South Florida. So Manny Diaz is getting ready to make a huge run there in college football, in the ACC, everywhere.
Right.
He's going to win the Florida. He's going to win the state of Florida. He's going to win the ACC. And he's going to be playing for national championships here in the next couple of years. But, yeah, I like Miami in this game. I know Mac Jones can outcoach anybody, but I like Manny Diaz.
Mac Brown.
Or what did I say, Mac Jones?
Yeah, Mac Brown.
Yeah, Mac Brown. Mac Brown can outcoach anybody, but I like Manny.
That's all I'm going to say right there, man. I'm going with the U. You don't like that?
Oh, so I thought you'd do something opposite, but I'm okay with it. I'm with you.
I'm going with Miami. 2:30 ABC. Miami is a 3-point favorite at home. All right, next up is going to be the game in the Big Ten to watch tomorrow, and it's actually our friend of the show on the call of this game. It is going to be 5-2 Iowa, ranked 16th in the country, hosting 2-2 Wisconsin. Wisconsin is really reeling right now. Although they are a 1-point favorite in this game, they are coming off 2 really bad performances. I'm actually going with the Hawkeyes of Iowa in this game.
Iowa is one of the best coached teams week in, week out, every year in and year out. Iowa is so underrated. They are a great team. They're coached well up. They're well prepared. I like Iowa almost in every game. That's why they're sneaky good every year. That's why they're always ranked. I like the Hawkeyes as well, brother. I don't think this one's going to be a good game.
And next up is going to be, and I'm sorry that we are going so long today, but we had a lot to cover. Next up is going to be a game. Now, the Washington-Oregon game was canceled for tomorrow. So they bumped this one up to the 3 p.m. time slot on Fox. It is California at Washington State. I just want to make this short and sweet. I'm going with Wazoo winning this game at home.
Wow. You liking Wazoo, huh?
Yes.
Wazoo's new coach from the island, coached Hawaii last year, runs the run and shoot offense. I like Washington State as well. I like the Cougars. And, that game might get a little ugly toward the end. I like the Cougars kind of going away.
All right, next up is going to be a game in the SEC. And this one right here is going to be 3 p.m. on the SEC network. It is going to be 2-6 Tennessee at 0-8 Vandy. And Tennessee is a 15-point favorite. Tennessee has an 82% chance to win this game. However, I do believe Sarah Fuller will suit up against Vandy in this game.
Yeah. Tennessee's a much better team, and they're not a good team at all. Vandy, they're just struggling in so many areas, and it's getting ugly. But I will say this, those Vandy players will get up for this game.
Yeah.
They will be ready for this game, and they will come hard in this game. If this game is within striking distance in the fourth quarter, anchor down, baby. But I don't think that's going to be the case. I think Tennessee will start making some plays toward the end of the first half, make it a 2-score game early in the second half. I think it'll be a 3-score game by the fourth quarter. And let's face it, that Tennessee offense, it's shocking they can get 3 scores on anybody, much less than a 3-score lead. But that Vandy offense, they're going backwards, man. Yeah, I like Tennessee.
Tennessee does not even know who their quarterback's going to be. It is not Garantano. It's going to be between 2 true freshmen and then a third-string guy. Anchor down, baby. I'm going with Vandy pulling the upset and killing any chance of Jeremy Pruitt coming back in 2021.
Wow, that's really bold, Stephen.
Yep, I'm going Vandy. I really like Vandy, and I do not like the trajectory. I hope I said that correctly. That Tennessee is going in right now. All right, the next game is going to be I think this one right here it's a primetime game, but I honestly feel like, Heath, that this one right here could literally get out of hand really quick in the swamp in Gainesville. It is 3-5 LSU at 8-1 Florida.
Yeah, I really would like to see some fight out of LSU in this one. I think LSU has given up. I think they will not be motivated tomorrow. I think they're sunk. I think Alabama took a lot out of LSU last week. So LSU, I'll even say this, Stephen, LSU's not even going to win the coin toss.
Right.
Florida is going to beat LSU tremendously. And it is going to get ugly. Yes, chomp, chomp. It is going to get ugly. And I think Dan Mullen is going to try to send a statement to Nick Saban in this game. But I will say this. Expect Dan Mullen to throw multiple trick plays out during this game just to give Alabama something to think about and show. Dan Mullen's known for that. Watch for multiple trick plays. If there was an over-under on trick plays at 2, I'm taking the over.
Right.
I would expect at least 3, if not 5 trick plays in this game from Dan Mullen and the Florida Gators. And let's see if Todd Grantham and that defense starts building some confidence, figuring some things out. They're starting to get a little better, Stephen.
Yes.
If the Todd Grantham defense that we all know is great, if his defense starts to show up going into the SEC championship game, it could be a lot of fun.
Yes. All right, man. Well, the next game, unfortunately, I had a gaffe, and I forgot the highlights of this game. I made the banner, but I forgot the highlights. And this one is actually the battle for Los Angeles. It is number 15 UCLA traveling number 15 USC traveling across the city to take on UCLA at the Rose Bowl tomorrow night, 6:30 on ABC. USC is a 3-point favorite. USC only has a 59% chance to win this game. I'm actually going with the Rose Bowl home team. I'm going with the Fighting Chip Kellys over USC.
Wow. The private school of USC versus the public school of UCLA. Spending a little time in California, this is a bitter rivalry.
Yes.
This is very bitter. USC looks down on UCLA, and UCLA laughs at them for even looking down on them because they think they're a bunch of nerds. So
right.
There you go. Have fun with that. No, the campuses are close together. The stadiums are not. The Rose Bowl's out in Pasadena, which is really nowhere close to Los Angeles. But with that being said, I'm riding with you, Stephen. I'm going with the Sky Blue and Champagne Bruins of UCLA.
Let's get it done. All right, next up is going to be, and I apologize for not having highlights of that one, but I do have highlights for the rest of our games. And this game is actually going to be the battle for the state of Virginia. And last year, Virginia knocked off Virginia Tech at Virginia Tech to end a long streak of having heartbreaking losses. The Wahoo of Virginia come in at 5-4, and Virginia Tech at home is a horrible 4-6 team. For whatever reason, Justin Fuente has just not worked out at Virginia Tech. I'm going with Bronco Mendenhall and the road team getting the win tomorrow night, 7 p.m. on the ACC network.
Wow. Fuente's had a bad season this year. He's won big in recent years. This year, it's kind of down.
Yes.
I'm not going to hold 2020 against Fuente. I'm not. But that was an embarrassing loss last year. And I think that's the kind of loss that you remember year-round. So I'm going to go with Virginia Tech. I'm going with the Hokies because, hey, Lee Corso said it best. I don't know what a Hokie is, but I know God's one of them. So I am going with the Hokies, and I like the Hokies to win this game. And I will not be shocked if this game is a little chippy and a little ugly all through the game.
Yeah.
But I do like Virginia Tech.
All right, and finally, before we get to what I'm calling the game of the day, we have one more Pac-12 game to get to. It is going to be Stanford at Oregon State. And Stanford is actually, ever since that win against Cal on Black Friday, they've actually turned things around. They've flipped the switch. I'm going with Stanford and the trees on this one.
Wow, look at you. I've been a little shocked at Oregon State. They've kind of come out of nowhere.
Yes.
I respect for Oregon State coming into the season. I wasn't disrespecting them, but I just thought Oregon State's terrible. They're not going to do much. They've started to do a little something. You know what? Wins build more wins. I'm going to go with the Beavers.
I got you. All right, man. Well, are you ready to get to the game of the day tomorrow?
Absolutely. Hey, will we see the turnover chainsaw again in that Oregon State game?
Possibly. I really, really like that.
I was looking for a shirt for you with the turnover chainsaw. I found another one that had the beaver and it said, "Don't Portland my Oregon," and I thought it was a great shirt.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, let's go to the game of the week, brother.
Are you going tomorrow night?
I am going. I will be at this game.
It is 5-4 Auburn after 2 embarrassing, horrible-looking losses to Alabama and A&M. They were not competitive in the second half of those games at a trending up Mississippi State team, even though they lost to Georgia and Ole Miss. They're going in the right direction. They are moving the football. It's starting to work a little bit. Heath, since you're going to the game, I'm actually going to let you pick first, sir.
All right. KJ Britt opted out this week for Auburn, one of the great linebackers, senior linebacker there on the Plains. And he is not going to be there. The Auburn linebackers have had problems with crossing routes. I got this from Cole Kubrick. He was on a show earlier this week, and he said they have had lots of problems with crossing routes. Mississippi State lives. That offense lives on crossing routes and trying to confuse the linebackers. You've now got depth problems at linebacker for Auburn. The Auburn backers have already had problems with the crossing routes. Bo Nix is two totally different quarterbacks. When we see him on the road, he's absolutely horrible. When he's at home, he's absolutely phenomenal. This game's in Stark Vegas. There's 2 strikes against Auburn, but can Mississippi State figure this out? This game's going to come down to Kevin Steele, the defensive coordinator for Auburn. I do not like him trying to blitz and get pressure on Will Rogers in that Mississippi State air raid offense. Kevin Steele has to be disciplined. He has to be disciplined and not blitz. He has to send 3 and drop 8. He has to teach his backers to cover. This 3-3-5 is going to give problems to Bo Nix in that offense. Tank Bigsby is the secret to the Auburn offense tomorrow. If Tank Bigsby is on, Auburn has a great chance. If Kevin Steele is disciplined, Auburn has a great chance. But Mississippi State is starting to figure things out. The Bulldogs are getting closer and closer to that big upset win. But I'm going with Auburn. Auburn has more athletes, and Auburn just has more going for them at this moment. After they lost 2 games in a row, I'm going to go with the Eagles, the War Eagles. And this one, the Auburn Tigers are going to win. They're going to win big. We're going to hear War Eagle all night. But Kevin Steele can easily lose this game for Auburn. I don't think this is going to be a high-scoring game. I think this is going to be a 24-20 kind of game. But I really, really think that this game is going to be close. If it gets into a shootout, it'll be Mississippi State all day. But I like the Auburn Tigers.
Who do you think I'm going with?
You know what, Steven? I see some cowbells back there behind you. I think you got a fever.
I'm actually going back to my roots here for this one. This one is the lefty bell that they actually gave as a souvenir with the Stingray on it. I want to thank them. This is the lefty by the Junction Bell. So I really want to thank them for giving me that when I was a Mississippi State and Stingray and all that. And I'm actually going with the Bulldogs of Mississippi State winning that game tomorrow night.
Wow. I hope it happens, but I just think Auburn has more athletes. I will say this. If Kevin Steele in the second half gets undisciplined and starts blitzing and going to man-to-man, Will Rogers will make a fool out of Kevin Steele. I just think that Auburn will stay disciplined. I think Tank Bigsby has a big game. I think Auburn wins.
I got you. Well, man, that's going to do it for this edition of the Stingray Show. We really hope that you have enjoyed it. We're sorry that we went so long-winded.
I'm not sorry.
So long, but we really hope you guys enjoyed it. We hope you guys enjoy your college football tonight and tomorrow. And I can go ahead and tease this. We have a former LSU player joining us next week on the Stingray Show. We have T-Bob Abear joining us to talk about the situation down at LSU. So without further ado, let me just go ahead and say enjoy your college football. Be safe out there. Wear your mask, social distance, and as always, God bless.
The Dogs and Stingray are coming for you.
This is Stephen Ray, a.k.a. Stingray, coming to you live from Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
Good afternoon, Mr. Feinbaum. Stingray here, and I'm about to shoot the bull with you like all the Auburn students do down at Auburn. Worst defense ever!
So without further ado, here is the biggest Alabama going for the field goal. The kick is up. It is away. It is no good. Chris Davis bringing it out of the end zone. Oh, he's got blockers. Chris Davis up the sideline. Here he goes.
Here we go, guys. Dobbs back to pass. Launching the ball. Jennings, he's got it. Jennings, he's got it. Touchdown, Tennessee. They shocked the Dogs in Sanford Stadium. Are you kidding me? way for the Tennessee-Georgia rivalry.